Good evening. This is a regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Montclair and is being broadcast live on Channel 34 and is streaming live at montclair.peg.tv. It is available on demand and can and will be rebroadcast. Roll call, please.
Mayor Jackson,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Slater,
Here.
Councilor Baskerville,
Present.
Councilor Hurlock,
Present.
Councilor McMahon,
Here.
Councilor Russo,
Present.
Councilor Spiller.
Thank you. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to ask that we remain standing for a moment of silence for Miranda Vargas, Jennifer Williams, the two people who were killed at the bus accident, who are from Paramus, and also for the 10 victims of the gun violence in Santa Fe. Thank you. We'll come back to public comment in a second. There have been sent to us the minutes of May 1st, 2018, and the amended minutes of April 10th, 2018. Are there any additions or corrections? I'll move them.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We also have two proclamations. The first declaring the first Friday in June to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and the second proclamation declaring Make Music Days in Montclair. Did any member of the council want to present those proclamations? I have.
I'll do gun.
I'll do the other one.
Make
And
music.
yeah, I'd like to sign it too. Thank you.
Who has the
Make music.
who has gun violence? Is your gun violence done?
No.
Who's got gun?
Thank you.
What's in the packet? In the packet, yeah, that was me. It's in the
Here's
packet.
here, Bob.
Got the gun gun?
Yeah, just go down there.
Should we start?
Do
Yeah,
that.
the
people
group is
there.
here to receive it.
See.
Okay.
Yeah. Receive orange.
Gun violence.
It wasn't at your
Yeah,
place?
yeah.
You don't have the packet.
If you want to read it, I will.
You'll get it?
Yeah, I know what it is, if it's there.
Are you on, Robert?
You folks all here, come on, gather around. I'm very happy to be reading this, only because it's not a nice thing to read, but I've been fighting for this issue for the time since President Kennedy was shot in 1963 with a rifle somebody bought through the mail, as most of you, especially the seniors here, know. Good, thank you. It's better for me to read it as a senior. But the gun issue's gone, too long, we all know. As the mayor said, enough is enough, and we're helping to fight this with this declaration today. So it's a proclamation saying, whereas every day 96 Americans are killed by gun violence, and on average there are nearly 13,000 gun homicides every year, and whereas Americans are 13 times more likely to be killed with guns than people in other developed countries, and whereas protecting public safety in the community they serve is mayor's highest responsibility, whereas support for the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens goes hand in hand with keeping guns away from dangerous people, whereas mayors and law enforcement officers know their communities best and are most familiar with local criminal activity and how to address it, and are best positioned to understand how to keep their citizens safe. And whereas in January 2013, Hadia Pendleton, a teenager who marched in President Obama's second inaugural parade and was tragically shot and killed just weeks later, should have been now celebrating her 21st birthday. Whereas to help honor Hadija and 96 Americans whose lives are cut short and countless survivors who are injured by shootings every day, a national coalition of organizations has designated June 1st, 2018 as the first Friday in June as the fourth National Gun Violence Awareness Day. Whereas the idea was inspired by a group of Khadijah's friends who asked their classmates to commemorate her life by wearing orange, that's what we're wearing tonight. They chose this color because hunters wear orange to announce themselves to other hunters when out in the woods, and orange is a color that symbolizes the value of human life. And whereas anyone can join this campaign by pledging to wear orange on June 1st, the first Friday in June 2018, to help raise awareness about gun violence. And whereas by wearing orange on June 1st, Americans will raise awareness about gun violence and honor the lives of gun violence victims and survivors. And whereas we renew our commitment to reduce gun violence and pledge to do all we can to keep firearms out of the wrong hands and encourage responsible gun ownership to help keep children safe, now therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and Township Council declare the first Friday in June, June 1st, 2018, to be National Gun Violence Awareness Day, and encourage all citizens to support their local communities' efforts to prevent the tragic effects of gun violence and to honor the value human lives. Signed by Mayor Robert Jackson and the entire council. I'll present this copy to whoever's in charge, and you can speak. Thank you for coming and being so strong and vocal in this issue that's gone on for 50 or 60 years, in all these years since President Kennedy was shot. Thank you.
On behalf of Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense and Every Town for Gun Safety, thank you for issuing this proclamation marking Gun Violence Awareness Day. We represent hundreds of individuals in Essex County who have come together to reduce gun violence. We applaud you, the Town Council of Montclair, for joining us as we honor the 35,000 individuals who died in the last year in the United States. As you are painfully aware, gun violence is a daily occurrence, with 96 individuals dying every day. And school shootings like Friday's shooting in Santa Fe, Texas, are happening at alarming frequency. Thank you for joining us in recognition of this American crisis. Gun Violence Awareness Day was started by the Friends of Hadiyah Pendleton to honor her life and legacy. Hadiyah's own parents have said, by wearing orange, we reaffirm the right of every American to live a life free from gun violence. Since 2015, Moms Demand Action has continued to honor her legacy by organizing local, state, and national activities to mark Gun Violence Awareness Day and by wearing orange. We have partnered with hundreds of mayors, governments, nonprofits, businesses, and individuals to make Gun Violence Awareness Day into a national event. We invite the Town Council and public to join us as Essex County marks Gun Violence Awareness Day on Sunday, June 3rd at 4 p.m. in Spiota Park in South Orange. We will have a short gathering and rally to bring together individuals who, like you, want to honor those who have died. Thank you again for being such a strong partner in our fight against gun violence.
Thank you.
Gun violence. Oh, thank you. And if we could do a photo. I'm on the first group.
Again, thank you to everyone who has supported our efforts here in Essex County. For those of you that may be watching on television, for people here in the audience, we have a highly active chapter in Essex County. I think we may have close to 700 members now. Our email address is momsdemandessexnj@gmail.com. momsdemandessexnj@gmail.com. What's happening right now in our country is an embarrassment,
Yes.
and we should be ashamed, because it doesn't matter what color of your skin,
That's right.
or your religion,
Socioeconomic.
or where you live,
That's right.
whether it's a handgun, whether it's an assault weapon. We have a problem, and we need to fix it.
That's
And it's
right.
going to require every single person's help. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your work.
And Dr. Baskerville, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Got your book. 29.
Dr. Bass, are you going to do make music?
Yes.
Kennedy. Oh, Kennedy's the day after.
Deputy Mayor has this.
Hmm?
Deputy Mayor.
Oh,
Let
no.
me just need my glasses.
Okay.
That was 1,600 years. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I just, it's just so hard. Just, all this gun stuff is really.
Good evening. I'm happy and proud to present a proclamation to make Music Day Montclair. I believe some of you are here for it.
That must have been a Trump.
Yes.
Trump thing. Yeah, playing.
Hi. How are you? How you doing? Hi. How you doing? Hi. Hello, everybody. Hi. So, this is a proclamation on behalf of the Township Council of Montclair, and it is declaring Montclair Make Music Day 2018. Whereas Make Music Day is an annual event held on the first day of summer inspired by France's Fête de la Musique, or Make Music Festival, it is now an international phenomenon that takes place in more than 800 cities across 120 countries. And whereas celebrating for the 5th consecutive year, which is very impressive, Montclair will be one of more than 65 cities across the U.S. taking part in Make Music Day. Traditionally celebrated on June 21st, this year the Montclair event has been expanded into a 3-day celebration of music and the arts running from June 21st to June 23rd to accommodate the Montclair High School graduation, which will take place on June 21st. The longer celebration will allow those who might have missed out a chance to participate. And whereas the Montclair Make Music Day collective is made up of volunteers, musicians, nonprofits, small businesses, owners, and students. Local arts organizations, Indie Arts Montclair, also known as I Am, is also participating with Make Music Day this year, sharing resources and helping with organization. The 2018 goal is to continue providing a great opportunity for Montclair area residents to perform and enjoy music. Now, therefore be it resolved that the Mayor and the Council of the Township of Montclair, the County of Essex hereby proclaim June 21st through June 23rd, 2018 to be Montclair Make Music Days, and encourage people of all ages and ability levels to gather in locations in parks, storefronts, libraries, and on township sidewalks to celebrate the ability to make music. So we're happy to present this to you, signed by the council and the mayor, and we're so glad that it's come into 3 days. It's incredible. So thank you very much. If you'd like to say something.
Well, I'm sorry to turn my back to the council because I want to talk to these folks. These are the volunteers that make this happen. This is the 5th year we're doing this without the support of volunteers from Terry Serendipity Cafe, places like 73C Gallery, and all the business owners, including Eastside Mags and Creativity Caravan, and so many other volunteers. This wouldn't happen. This year we have 3 days of music, including an event at Project Graduation. So we invite you all to come out, check us out on the website, Montclair Makes Music, sign up, and we hope you enjoy Make Music Days. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We have a group of students from the Social Justice Institute. Mr. Freeman, I know they've got to get home and get some sleep and get back to school tomorrow, so we're going to give you a chance to make your presentation. Thank you.
Can you shine it on the wall? Can you put it on that wall?
Should be a little bit.
Good. There you go. Hi. We're from Montclair Center, Montclair High Center for Social Justice. And
Introduce yourself. Let us know.
I'm Sadie Beddick Bloom. I'm a junior. We're going to talk to you guys about rent control and gentrification in Montclair. We thought we would have a projector, but we're going to roll with it. So we'd also like to invite you guys to come to talk to us at our school. I know the mayor's coming to talk to us, but we'd love to give our full presentation.
She didn't mention that I already came.
So I'm a senior at Montclair High. I'm Joni. Growing up, I remember a lot of my friends moving away from Montclair due to high rent increases. So my friend Rebecca from MKA is going to present some demographics.
Hi, I'm Rebecca from MKA. So to preface the proposals, we wanted to first give a brief overview of the current circumstances of affordability in Montclair, and so we're breaking down this analysis in two ways. First, we want to look at how much it actually costs to live in Montclair right now. So the following data comes from the September 2014 ALICE report conducted by the United Way of Northern New Jersey. So on the more general front, 22% of all Montclair residents either fell below the poverty line or the ALICE threshold. ALICE is a term that indicates a financial situation where the person is employed but still is asset limited and income constrained. So what we see is that 1 out of every 5 Montclair residents has either been impoverished or in a very financially insecure situation since 2014. The data also showed us that the percentage of Montclair renters specifically with a housing burden, which means that they're paying more than 30% of their total income for their living situation, more than 41% of Montclair renters fell in that category. So that means that for nearly half of Montclair renters, rent prices posed a heavy burden on their financial stability. Additionally, a different online source gave us a general cost of living index as compared to the national average. And so in every category, Montclair ranked more expensive relative to the national average. And in particular, it was important to look at the housing category, which told us that housing in Montclair is 3 times as expensive as the national average. So that's the current economic landscape. And don't get us wrong, we understand that the resources, support, and opportunity in Montclair inevitably comes at a price. However, all of those benefits inherently hinge on the people who live here. The fact that people come from all walks of life in Montclair adds social value to Montclair itself and gives it the atmosphere that attracts people here, that makes people want to visit and move here. So ultimately, Montclair residents are the town's primary source of economic value. So if the people that give Montclair its value can't afford to live here, we really need to pay attention to these numbers when it comes to our legislation, in particular rent control.
So I wanted to address the fact
Let us know
that
who you are.
my name is Steele Gabriels Minelli. I'm a sophomore at Montclair High. I wanted to address that our neighboring towns have certain ordinances in place to keep their residents from overpaying for their property in case there was an increase for their rent. And for example, West Caldwell has a maximum rent increase of 3% and 2% for those who pay for their own heat. And Bloomfield has an ordinance in place that allows house owners to tax their tenants 5%.
So Montclair currently doesn't Montclair currently doesn't have specific rent control laws in place, and we know that this is something that's been addressed before, and people have tried to bring these laws to everyone's attention, but for one reason or another it hasn't worked, so we wanted to address this again. We have some proposals for you guys to try show you what our research has shown us.
Hi, I'm Maggie Vaughn. I'm a sophomore at Montclair High. And our first proposal deals with different rent increase caps per different housing units. So if it's a one-family home, we thought the landlord could raise the rent 3% a year. If it's a multi-unit home, 2% a year. And if it's apartment complexes, 2% a year. And for them to be able to raise the rent, it should be a month notice prior to the end of lease. And if the landlord needs to improve something that needs to be improved to like meet standard safety codes, they can't raise the rent for that.
Hi, my name is Helena Balch. I'm a junior at Montclair High School, and for our second proposal, we wanted to base the limit for landlords to increase the rent on tenants on the Consumer Price Index, which is the difference between the value of the home when it was first rented and when the lease is up. So we saw a lot of neighboring towns doing this and seem to have success. So our proposal is that we want the rent increase to be based on that price without going over a total of 3.5% increase. And we would also like to see regulation by the town to make sure that there is no skirting around the rules and stuff like that.
My name is Mael Rosser. I'm a sophomore at Montclair High, and this is our third proposal. So this one's different from the other ones mainly because the rent increase may not exceed the current inflation rate plus 2%. And the landlord must give the tenant a minimum of 4 months prior to the end of the lease if they are increasing the rent. And in the case of a property being renovated, a landlord may only increase the rent by 5% after the first year of renovations. And if the tenant pays heat, water, or electricity bills, so any of their utilities, the landlord cannot increase the rent by more than 2%. And the landlord can only increase rent once a year. And obviously, like mandatory improvement for health codes and safety codes, they can't raise the rent for that. That's not included.
I'm Raquel Gazy. I'm a sophomore.
And I'm Sydney Foster. I'm a sophomore.
So we understand that there are a lot of counter arguments against rent control, and so we'll explain some of them.
One con to rent control is that landlords will lose money if there is rent control in place, because if tenants are paying less for their rent, the landlord is earning less money, which is less money for maintenance. So that means the quality of the home or the apartment will be going down, and so will the property value. And the mobility of families will decrease if there's rent control, because if your rent is secure at your home, there would be no reason for you to leave.
If the overall property tax is decreasing on a home, there's less money for services like trash pickup, schools, and stuff like that. And there wouldn't be incentive for a realtor to create rental units because they wouldn't be making as much money.
And people that can afford rent controlled homes will be blocking out the people that need rent control homes, that are in need of rent control homes, because if they are secure in their homes, they won't want to leave, which does not create the possibility for people that actually need rent control to be able to find those apartments and homes.
And so we do understand that there is opposition to rent control, but there are so many positives that would come with it that we feel like it would be a benefit to Montclair as a whole if we did have rent control laws in place.
So we want to thank everyone for your time and allowing us to come and present tonight. And again, we have a whole extra presentation for you guys. If you'd like to come in, we'd love to have you. We're from the Center of Social Justice. We've been studying this all year. So we just wanted to thank you guys again for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'd just like to thank Mr. Jeff Freeman for the outstanding job that you're doing with your class. I was privileged and honored to go in and visit with the class along with our housing chair, Mr. Scott, and we were in there. And these students are so well informed. The discussions that we had were about what's going on at the Lackawanna Plaza, trying to make sure that there's housing for the diverse population here, and their ideas are just things that we can't just close our eyes to. And I'm really excited. They've been at some of the planning board meetings. In fact, the last planning board meeting, I know Mr. Freeman was here along with some of his students. And so I'd just like to commend you guys for what you're doing and let you know that we hear you. And I appreciate so much when I first got the call from them and they were asking questions and telling me, you know, the different topics that they're talking about in the social justice and asked that I would come. I was just so excited that at this point in time in their life when so many others are, you know, planning for the end of year and doing things that they are as engaged as they are. And so I thank you guys so much for what you're doing. I applaud you. And Mr. Freeman, thank you. Keep up the great work.
I hope you'll stick around.
Thank you, SJI, and thank you, Mr. Freeman. Appreciate it.
CSJ.
What am I saying? What did I say? What did I say? What did I say? CS. I don't know what I said.
You said CG. No, you said CSJ. You were right. Yeah, you were correct.
I said
Yeah,
CSJ,
you were
Center for
on.
Social Justice.
The mayor knows.
Okay. We are next. We'll trying to think. Should we do seniors first, or let's do public comment? Anybody wishing to address the council may do so, and please hold your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening.
Good evening. John Sullivan, 19 Euclid Place, Vice President, Bike Walk Montclair. I'm here to speak on behalf of the pilot parklet program. It's a lot of P's resolution that's coming before the board tonight. And for those of you who need a refresher course, a parklet is a little mini park that takes place in an on-street parking spots temporarily for about 5 months. We did one 2 years ago. We're on the 2-year anniversary of the successful Glenridge Avenue parklet, sponsored by the Montclair bid with Israel Kronk, who I believe is here too. So we're here again. Yeah, he's in the back. We've been working for 2 years to get back to this point, and I want to thank everyone for hearing us out. We really think this is a vital component and a key addition to what will be the success in Montclair. So public space is a really important thing, and I think sometimes we think of all public space as the beautiful greenery parks in Montclair, but public space takes a lot of different forms, and this is one of them. So we are lined up to have one on Walnut Street and one on Glenridge Avenue. And the benefits of parklets are not just a place to sit down. So we've heard a lot tonight about, and I hate to follow all the serious things with guns and also with social justice too. And there is a tie here to having places where people can be in the public realm outside of businesses. And I think sometimes it doesn't seem that way on the surface, but this is a very important thing that we're lacking. Some places is to just sit and be with other people. So besides the economic value of increasing foot traffic that we have found in other towns and in Glenridge Avenue with our demonstration parklet, outside of Mish Mish and Dolly Moo, there was an increase in foot traffic and retail sales for the time when they were there. We also want to emphasize that this project is being brought into heavily by a lot of people in the audience tonight with Indie Arts Montclair and local artists who make them really unique to Montclair. So they can come out of a box and we can assemble a bunch of wood in the street and it can look very generic, or we can involve the community in every single step of the way and all the local artists, and that is our plan from day one, is to really make these stick out and represent the town. There's even been talk about tying these structures, since they're occurring during the anniversary of the town, to represent that kind of stuff too. So I hope that the resolution passes tonight, and I think it is a huge benefit that outvalues the the small amount of square feet that these occupy. Thanks.
I have a handout coming along. This Cindy Steiner, 6 Jerome Place, and I'm also the executive director of the New Jersey Bike and Walk Coalition, which is happily based here in Montclair. So it's very difficult to get data on these parklets, and I'd like to present some for you to support the economic case for these, which is certainly something that resonates and should resonate, because the higher our business tax base, the better it is for all of our residents. So what I'm handing out to you are just some portions of a much longer report that I spared you of, but the reference is here if you'd like to avail yourself of it. This is the University City District report on the case for parklets. University City District is a section around University City in Philadelphia. It's a partnership of businesses, organizations, and residents. And in 2011, they installed the city's first parklets, probably some of the first parklets in the nation. And in 2013, they did some data collection to understand exactly how these parklets were being used. And if you flip over to the second page of what I handed you, you'll see a chart showing the percentage of seats occupied throughout the day at each of these parklets. So these are 6 parklets, each outside a different establishment, all of them eateries. And you can see from 8 a.m. all the way up to 10 p.m. the percentage of seats occupied in the parklets. You can see that the cafe is pretty much 100% used. Later on, the ice cream shop, the parklet's pretty much packed. Earlier, the taco shop is pretty high. And so we're saying here the highest one had over 150 unique users in the space of one parking spot, which is tremendous when you consider the revenue being generated from those individual users versus the parking revenue lost from one car being parked there. And so then further down, the total number of daily unique users, also pretty high, up to the 150, and then the average occupancy also. Flipping over to page 8 very quickly, the businesses report an average of 20% increase in sales as a result of having these parklets there, which is pretty substantial. And the report showed that the parklets pay for themselves after 1 or 2 seasons in place. And then in conclusion, on the last page, just give you this quote: "If people rather than cars are invited into the city, pedestrian traffic and city life increase correspondingly." And so you can see the references here further on if you'd like to look further, but this is just some very basic data, some of the rare pieces of data that are actually out there to support the economic case for parklets. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, just want to add a point there. Just for clarity too, I know that in the conversations, and I know I can probably speak for my colleagues, Councilwoman Baskerville and Deputy Mayor Schlager, we did make the distinction between a parklet and an eatery. I believe that's how we're calling it, right? A streetery. There we go. That's what we're calling streetery. And just for our colleagues' sake too, we did note that the streeteries, which are attached to a specific establishment like a restaurant, which is kind of what you're blending into here, we were staying away from that in the sense of, there's a benefit to that establishment. What would the cost be? How do you analyze that? How do you make sure that the residents, the taxpayers, are compensated for that space if that were to be the case?
Right.
But the parklet idea specifically in that it's open to anyone and everyone.
Sure.
It does not have to be somebody patronizing a business that is right there.
That's right.
Certainly, something that we wanted to draw people in, and of course, that from there they can go anywhere they'd like. But we did make that distinction, so I know that when we are making that recommendation, our colleagues are reviewing it. It is not one of those streeteries. It's specifically a parklet,
Sure.
and allows all to use it. So I just wanted to note that because there was a little bit of a distinction.
Yeah, if I could,
Thank
can I
you.
quickly respond to that?
Sure.
The report does talk about the spillover benefit of parklets. So these were not necessarily for one eatery. They did talk about other people coming and using them also as a benefit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ira, you want to? Ira.
Okay, thank you. My name's Dave Busio. I live at 110 Essex Avenue here in Montclair.
Evening,
I'm the
Dave.
chair of the Township's Advisory Committee for People with Disabilities. And I'm here to talk briefly about the Edgemont Park parking configuration. There's a presentation that's going to be coming along right after me, but I'd like to remind the council that Montclair's had a long-standing commitment to issues relating to inclusivity for senior programs and the disabled community in general. But as you'll see in the presentation, the new parking configuration really lessens the opportunities for all users of the park and the park house, especially for residents and seniors and disabled who use the park for programs and such during the days. You know, the township constructed the old children's playground at Edgemont Park to expand inclusivity, and as going to be noted, the reduction in handicapped spaces in the proposed configuration seriously complicates access for somebody who needs to park a handicapped van, for instance. You know, the master plan in 2006 noted the township's increased elderly population and the likely need for additional services. But the senior bus that takes seniors to and from the park house is going to need significant space for pickup and drop-off for users of the park house during the programs that occur there. The current configuration seriously complicates the need for access. It really marginalizes a significant portion of the population that would be using the park. You know, frankly, I think, based on my perception, the configuration that is proposed to be done there now is going to be in violation of some aspect of either the ADA or Americans with Disabilities Act or the Green Acres sources of income for the project. So I just wish we could sort of stop having these after the fact. Geez, I wish we thought about that before we went forward with this kind of reaction to a lot of things that are going on. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Can I get the handout to the clerk? Good evening. My name is Frank Rebecki. I live at 398 Upper Mountain Avenue. I'm here to talk about the Lackawanna resolution on the agenda tonight. I expected and wanted a point of view from the council. I don't know if I would have done a resolution, but that's your choice. I definitely wouldn't have done the wording of the resolution. The wording to me suggests that you've made your decision based on what's been submitted so far, and you're not open to further input, which I think is a mistake. The planning board, as you know, hasn't completed its testimony, especially on the parking, and we all know that this application hinges on the parking. Further, the town is not even permitting, the council has not really has made a decision before their own parking expert has testified. And so for those reasons, I think this resolution is problematic. I think you also know my position. My position is that we can have preservation and we can have the grocery store. What the handout you have, and you can take home and look at it as you wish, is an alternative, a concept that shows how we could have preservation, how we could have parking, and it has one other feature that the town has been asking for, specifically Dr. Baskerville's constituents, which is it wouldn't further delay the project. And my worry is that you've closed your minds with this resolution and you've kind of put the cart before the horse. So I applaud you for taking a point of view, but I would hope that you would reopen your minds to the possibilities of what could be done. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Just by way of clarification, the council has no voting power whatsoever over this application. This is the planning board. So whether our minds are closed or not is really moot.
Well, No, it's not moot because you're the leadership of the township, number one.
But we don't vote. We don't vote on
I'm
this
talking
application.
about representing the constituents. So from a public input, a public comment point of view, you are giving public comment of your constituents, number one. And number two, in all honesty, you appoint the members of the planning board. And I have to feel that there's going to be some kind of pressure on the planning board and the members that don't see eye to eye with you. Now, you can say that they shouldn't feel that way, but it really comes down to the perception. And I think that's the problem with this resolution. Now, no doubt you can voice this privately to them and such, but the example that you're setting for the township is not an example that I think you should be setting. I appreciate the passion behind this, but I think you should, at the very least, besides the fact there's some factual inaccuracies in the resolution that I really don't care much about, is that you could pass this resolution June 12th in your conference meeting and still have it hit the planning board before their meeting. They already know how you feel. You could withdraw this resolution and they know how you feel. So I don't see why the rush to do it tonight, besides you want to make a statement. And you are doing that, so I can't argue with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathleen Bennett, 10 Glenwood Road, chairperson of the HPC. And I just wanted to tell the council members that May is Preservation Month, and next week we will be giving out, awarding our preservation awards. We have 5 awards, very exciting awards. They're all over town, residential, commercial, and a Preservationist of the Year. So we do take preservation very seriously, and we also are appointed, and I think as residents of the town, we try to look at all views within a preservation mindset. So having said that, I would like to clarify some of the points on resolution number 14, resolution in support of the current Lackawanna Plaza plan, because I think there's been some misunderstanding. I wasn't at the planning board last week. I was away. I was at a conference. But I just want it to go on the public record that nobody on the HPC is trying to keep a grocery store from that location. If anything, we certainly understand the need. And so to hear what was said is a total misrepresentation of the facts. And again, having said that, I would like the council to know that I have met with the developer. Mr. Wynn of the planning board asked me to meet with the developer. I had a private conversation with him to ask him to come up with an alternative to the current plan. He's adamantly refused to give any type of alternative plan. He understands what is there. That whole area is in the local local historic designation, and those 5 elements that the HPC identified, the plan currently addresses 4 of those elements. The 5th one, which is the train sheds, unfortunately, most of those will be destroyed in the current location. So in the resolution that I have here, number 6, it says, whereas the Historic Preservation Commission issued a report to the Planning Board on February 15th, 2018, with 16 recommendations, all of which have been addressed by the applicant. I'd also like to add that we also wrote an amended recommendations on April 26th. And the 2, everything was the same, but we added 2 in numbers 1 and 2. We made it definite that we are against any demolition of historic structures, which are the train sheds. Now, so I think that for clarification and for veracity, that should be added on number 6. And then on number 7, where it says, whereas recently introduced concept, e.g. farmers market, atrium, antiques market, and public gathering space, militate against the reintroduction of a full-scale supermarket, which remains a non-negotiable commitment to the residents, who in fact frequented and supported Lackawanna Plaza for 30 years. I in fact frequented Lackawanna Plaza and the Pathmark. So this goes beyond the ward. I think this impacts the entire community, and the first sentence on that, with the farmers market, atrium, antique market, and public gathering space, I just would like the council to realize that those were not suggestions by the HPC. Those were suggestions by people in the community that are concerned and these were to be additions to a supermarket, but to create a vibrant, exciting space, not to be an antique market all the time, but to have different things happening there, to be a meeting space. So I think that number 7 should be rewritten, because it really doesn't reflect what the HPC had discussed and what the preservation concepts of what we have now looked at. I mean, going on 3 years. The first for the redevelopment and now for the development plan. Number 3, it says where the Pathmark closed in November 2015, depriving the community of its only proximate supermarket for nearly 3 years. I would ask the community, which community are you talking about? Are you talking about the neighborhood? Because in fact, that impacts the entire community of Montclair. So I think that if you're talking about, you should be more inclusive of what you mean by that. So I'm just trying to clarify those 3 points. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, Kathleen, it doesn't say that the HPC introduced those concepts. It just says these concepts were introduced. It could be the public, as you said, other people. It doesn't say HPC.
Well, it was at the last HPC meeting. So I think in people's minds that people are thinking that we are suggesting other uses, and that it is not the case.
It doesn't say that, though.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Frederick Chichester, 56 Gordonhurst Avenue. I'd like to speak to a problem that has arisen recently in our neighborhood. Apparently there were plans to resurface Gordonhurst Avenue, and the first notice I had of that was the morning that they said they might start. And I only found out about this because a nearby neighbor alerted me to it. It seems they delivered the flyers concerning this the evening before this was allegedly going to start. And among the things they asked us to do was keep our cars off the street and not park them in areas where we couldn't access them if the paving were in process. Now, it seems that this was far too late for its purpose. Now, fortunately, they haven't started working on the street yet, even though we got the notice Friday. But to say that it's going to start Friday and deliver us a notice that we get Friday morning after the alleged start time is not good communication, no matter how you look at it. You need to do a better job of communicating with the residents concerning this matter.
I'm Pat Kenshaft from 56 Gordonhurst, and I'd like to use my 3 minutes for 2 topics, if I can squeeze them in. One is that Montclair is paying over $1 million a year for an insurance policy that I think you really should be rethinking. It pays enormous amounts of money to lawyers for defending against very reasonable kinds of responses. I got involved with this when a tree fell on my car, and I had minor physical injuries which didn't cost much, but the car was totaled for $1,600. And the town spent the enormous amount more than that on legal fees to not pay us. And then shortly after that, a town tree fell on a neighbor's car, didn't destroy the car, but again, it was well under $2,000, and an enormous amount of lawyers' money was being paid. This is not a good use of our tax money, and it's not a wise use. It allows irresponsibility in ways that I'd rather not. Now, that takes me to my second issue, which is banning leaf blowers altogether. National studies indicate that 10% of those using them with ear protections go deaf. A third have serious hearing damage. It is not a wise use of resources. I have maintained all our property, as many of you know, with no power machinery, and I'm a 78-year-old woman. These young men can jolly well do it, and I think I do it faster. I certainly do it as fast. They spend so much time in their little things, and it is a terrible waste of time and money, and horrible for the environment, climate change and so on. It's really bad for anybody who has to work at home, anybody who likes to garden. Please, please consider banning leaf blowers altogether and insisting that the township not use them. It wastes a lot of our money, along with all tax money, along with other disadvantages. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Greenbaum. I'm a resident of Montclair since 1966. I came back to raise my family here in Montclair. My daughter is a recent graduate of the School of Social Justice at Montclair High School. I care very deeply for the town, and I volunteered to be on the HPC because of my deep care for the town and knowing that I had something valuable to add. The HPC, as a commission, generally attracts, or I should say, has been appointed with people who tend to have architectural literacy and have a great deal of care as well to volunteer, like yourselves, at great personal and time expense to contribute to their community. I want to reiterate something that Kathleen, our chairperson, had just said, and that is, there's nothing the HPC wants to do that is counter to the goals of a supermarket being placed in the former Lackawanna Plaza. We want that supermarket just as quickly as any of you and any member of any part of the community, whether they're First Ward, Second Ward, Third Ward, Fourth Ward, Glenridge, Bloomfield. It applies to each and every one of us. I've been a patron of the Radio Shack, the shoe repair, of course, the supermarket. There are many merchants there that I patronized. We feel a loss, and I live in the Third Ward, and I feel a loss. That doesn't mean we should sacrifice what is perhaps the most important historical structure in our community. We should also not miss an opportunity to take perhaps one of the most important intersections of our community and present and guide a project that will enhance and create great value for the community, including those most proximate to it. So the HPC is in no way working counter to the interests of any part of the community, and we are absolutely interested in reconciling all the interests of the community to get the absolute best project possible. The suggestions that we have made would include preserving the existing Lackawanna train station, including the train sheds, honoring the fact that in the 1980s, the interior of the mall that was created was glass enclosed that linked the train sheds in a very elegant and very clever way. The only mistake I believe that was made is that they made it an internal mall as opposed to a street-facing establishment. And I think now we have the opportunity to really leverage the good thinking of the 1980s when the train station was intelligently and elegantly preserved, and once again leverage off of that and just improve it by making it open to the parking lot, And if more parking is required, which really is the issue here, the issue is the landlord, the developer's need for parking to meet parking ratios. We are not insensitive to that. However, it should not come at the expense of a critical historical asset in our community. It should not come at the expense of the Fourth Ward to be facing a sea of pavement. It should be a place that is a site for congregation with amenities to service the entire community. It should be something we should all be proud of. It should activate not only Bloomfield Avenue and Grove Street, but it should activate Glen Ridge Avenue as well. So we suggested that any demolition to require additional parking take place on the Glen Ridge side or to the existing supermarket portion. That means preserving and incorporating the existing train station as front of house for the supermarket. And I circulated several articles to several members of the planning board and to some members of the town council talking about how natural daylight is an asset in supermarkets today. It is actually sought after and attractive, and actually Whole Foods as a chain is incorporating natural daylighting into their supermarket environments. So we already have the natural daylight built in with the glass atrium. All we need to do is eliminate the front wall where the merchants, where there was a division, and make that one contiguous space for the supermarket. And that glass enclosed, naturally lit space would become a very attractive place for congregating for prepared foods and dining in. So, in review, we have an opportunity, we have an asset, and we have a community that is one community, not us and them, us. And we deserve, from whichever ward, whichever part of the greater community, deserve to have the absolute best project. And if there needs to be food services provided, there's nothing that has stopped the landlord, the developer, from putting in a short-term lease with any supermarket chain. That could have been done. The township council could make that a resolution. That would address the immediacy needs of the community that has been impaired by the lack of a supermarket. There are other solutions rather than short-term, short-sighted solutions to come up with a suboptimal, less than ideal plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, William Scott. I just wanted to thank Mr. Freeman and his Center for Social Justice class for inviting me to class at the Hillside School, the Montclair High School. I hadn't been back there for 50 years. And to go back there and to sit in front of the students that are absolutely young adults, that are focused, they're beginning to get a very good understanding of their community. When they talked about issues of affordable housing, rent control, redlining, gentrification, bid wars as it relates to housing, it's everything that we're faced with today in Montclair. And for the young adults to be focused and aware of what was going on. I was really, really impressed with that class, so I had a great time there and hope to be invited back again. I really didn't plan on speaking on the Lackawanna Plaza project, but obviously there's always a counter response to some of the things that have been said here recently from some of the former members of the HBC. I just wanted to clarify, when I went back and I watched the tape of the meeting on April the 26th, I believe, I did hear recommendations that talked in terms of demolition of the supermarket. That to me was a major concern, to put that kind of a financial burden on the developer. I did hear other lesser recommendations, but to me that was one that was just more than I thought that was necessary to be placed on the developer. At that point, I spoke at the planning board meeting in regards to that, and yes, I am the co-chair of the Montclair Housing Commission and also the chair of the Montclair NAACP Housing Committee, but I don't speak for the entire community. There were several individuals that came out to the planning board meeting.
that were concerned that they did not see a commitment to the community, and they just seemed to be more focused on the preservation of the train station. And I really didn't want to see that process continue. Like we've had some major concerns when we dealt with the Haynes project that was out there for 10, 15 years, back and forth, impacting the community, letting a valuable asset just sit there and waste, but it did get turned around. Well, my point was addressing the planning board members. I didn't want to see another situation like that. The community has been waiting for a supermarket and other amenities. The housing is going to be an important element to that project. It will revitalize the business district as well. So it was not just about the supermarket. It was about really bringing a project back to the area that's badly needed, and that's why I was in support of the project. I've heard tonight that the HBC has made some changes in some of the recommendations that were put forth at that meeting and were moved into the new resolution or amendments to what the original recommendations were. So I just wanted to be clear why we wanted to make sure that the process continues. And the process has not been finalized. It does have to go back to the planning board. They will listen to whatever the additional recommendations are going to be, and they'll make their decision. It is up to them to make that decision. As the mayor said, you don't vote for the planning board. The planning board will make that recommendation. So I just wanted to be clear, as I mentioned, some of the comments that were made earlier as far as misrepresentation. And I did not misrepresent anything. And what they were saying tonight, that was not a misrepresentation. It was what I heard when I watched the tape of that planning board meeting. And I just wanted to make sure that that's on the record. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Nick Pianasenti, and I like to bring up in Montclair. I don't know why. Years ago, we used to have the Bloomer Night. We have to try to go back there, at least once a month. The Montclair is doing. I notice you people, you expect all of the government to clean those streets, but they do the best they can. But years ago, we used to have the Bloomer mostly every week, which in Newark, they have a light time. You go to Clifton, in the summer, really summer and winter, you can eat off the street. Montclair, not like that. I live a Valley Road. There's a water catch base over there. Anytime it rain, mostly me. I go there, I take some of the junk off to let the water go down. That's number one. Number two, I like to say, Upper Montclair, on the corner of Valley Road and Belleville Avenue. It should be eliminated free park. Otherwise, as you go north on Valley Road, on the right, there should be eliminated 3 cars on one side, 3 cars on the other side, because the people that travel from the north to west, there's one lane a day. There's no, the traffic is too much. The people, they wait. I believe that if we eliminate 3 cars on one side, 3 cars, now where the movie was, the street before. If we can eliminate 3 park on both sides, if somebody have to make a left or turn, the other guy can go around and make a right on Valley Road or make a left on Valley Road, thing like that. Because the traffic over there is too much. Number 3, I'm going to surprise everybody. I have another idea. I sent quite a few letters to President Trump, also the Vice President Pence. I come out with an idea in the future. In this country, if we can eliminate the signed letter in the American language, I noticed it in Europe, all Europe, no matter where you go, they have 5 years of school elementary school and 3 years of 3 years of high school. Over here in America, we have 13 years altogether. We have 9 years of elementary school, 4 years of high school, and then the college. College is different. So if we can use the language right the way we speak, otherwise you see we have so many extra layers in the American language, and we have an average of 60-70% of the people in this country they cannot make halfway decent letter, including me. I work with the dictionary. And there's a lot of people, they go on a computer to spell the words. I like in the future, in this country, if we can write the way we speak, all the alphabetical letters, we should read from what they are. If it's an A, it's an A. If it's a I, it's I. If it's a E, it's E. Things like that. It will be much easier. It will be much easier to learn, and we don't need that much of school. Believe me, we can eliminate 5 years of school in this country, the way they do all in Europe and other countries. I made some letter to Mr. Trump. He responded to me that some later he cannot do alone. He recommended me do the new election of the year of 2020. If you can send a letter to somebody who ever done, because some later all the country got we have to know about it. And me, the way I figure, if we do the way they do in Europe, 5 years of elementary school and 3 years of the other one, the other school, and make 8 years altogether. I'm going to talk about 3 years high school. Over here we have a 13. By having the school, they can work 5 hours a day straight from 8 to 1, and then the kids they go home. We can eliminate all the lunch in school because of the short hour, and also 5 years less of a school, because when you write the way you speak in a matter of 2-3 years, everybody can learn very easy. That's all I have to say. I have a letter here that I made. I want to give one of each.
Give it to the clerk, Nick, and she'll get it to us. Okay.
I think you should make sure you send a copy to the Secretary of Education, because I'm sure she would go along with that of eliminating most of the years of education. So
no,
make sure you copy
I
her.
don't know. My view, I like to make America better in the future.
Thank you.
Easy to learn, short time in school, and we can eliminate the lunch in school.
Okay.
Because that's what they're doing.
Thank you, Nick. We'll have to.
That's what they're doing.
We got to move on.
Yeah,
we got to move on.
Be done. The kids eat in the morning.
I understand.
And then they come home and eat. You know how much a million we can save. Believe me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? We're good.
I'm not sure this is appropriate, but I've asked everybody here who came to hear the discussion on Edgemont Park House to withhold their public comment until we had
That's
the
fine.
presentation.
That's fine.
So is it okay?
That's
we
fine.
up to that?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Therefore, I'd like to ask Colin Minert, a member of the SCAC board, to help us with the presentation.
I'm just not sure that we're finished with other public comment. I just want to make sure. Is anybody any comment on anything else? Okay, now we'll go to the presentation for the SCAC.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Colin Meinert. I'm a member, resident of Montclair for over 40 years. I'm also a member for the last 3.5 years of the SCAC, the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee. I'd like to, before saying a few more words, I'd like everybody in the audience who is involved in senior issues, either as a part or a member and involved with AIM or with SCAC, to stand. So you can see the number of people who are interested in these issues. Okay? Thank you. I'd like to share with you the views and recommendations of the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee on this very important issue. But I'd like to remind you that we're a body of 15 members that are charged with advising the municipal council on issues impacting seniors. We're known within the township as being pretty active on these issues, and we'll continue to do so. We take our charge and our responsibility very seriously, and that's one of the reasons we're here tonight. As you expected, this presentation is about the parking and vehicular access to the Edgemont Park House and the project that's underway. We submitted about a month and a half ago to the council a 4-page detailed discussion of the issues and that. I'm not going to go through all of those again, but I will highlight some of the important things. We haven't received a response, written, verbal, or anything to that. And so, as far as we're concerned, that issues are still festering, and we'd like to share our perspective on them and the reasons why we think it's so important. One of the ways about doing this is to correct some of the information in the public press and in discussions that are being floated around. One of the justifications for doing this project was that they wanted to continue the spirit and the work because this was claimed to be a Frederick Law Olmsted park, and it's not. It's not in the National Register. It's not a product of Frederick Law Olmsted or his brothers or the firm or anything else. In fact, Montclair's own records show that in the spring of 1909, the proposal that the Olmsted submitted for grading and planting plan was not accepted by the town. So let's put that behind us. It's still a wonderful 15.5 acre facility that was acquired by the town in 1906. It has many features and serves not just the immediate community, but the entire town of Montclair. One of the other comments that's floating around is that somehow the seniors don't have a special interest or in the Edgemont House facility. Well, the truth is, 3 years ago, the Municipal Council authorized a grant application as well as accepted grant funds from the Partners for Health that were specifically for improvements to the interior of the Edgemont Park House in order to support its use for programs for seniors. At that point, I don't know how that was interpreted in any other way. Since the summer of and the following, that was in 2015. The next summer, that work was completed, and by the spring, that facility was beginning to be used. That's about, between then and now, is about 20 months. And you should know that in those 20 months, carefully tracked is the fact that we've had over 10,000 senior visits to the Edgemont House for activities and programs. Those have all occurred between on weekdays between about 9 and 9:30 and 4 in the afternoon. There continues to be, by other entities within the township, use of the facility for on weekends and evenings. Those include meetings, scouting, teen music, and a variety of kinds of things. But to say or imply that the facility doesn't serve seniors, I think is not fair at all and is inconsistent with the reality here. Seniors have been trying for a number of years to move towards getting an adequate senior facility. This is merely a step in that direction. The facility, even when seniors won't be using it exclusively, if it does get a center, will still continue to have programs that will benefit members of the community, including members of the senior community. And that percentage of the population in Montclair is growing every single year. So let's keep that in perspective. One of the issues here is parking. Parking, we're talking about adequacy of parking. It's not that that the side streets can't be used, and they are used for parking. But in recent years there's been use of that parking on that site. It's particularly helpful for people who are that need to be closer, and that could be a lady, a mother with a young child and a stroller and also, and just wants to park there in order to be close to getting the stroller out and baby in it and walking around and strolling. It can also be a senior citizen who can't do huge walking. They may have a stroller, they use a cane, or they just may be slow. But that's important. So when this project, it's my understanding from talking to some of the people involved in this project, that when this project started, including that a number of people were involved in determining what the capacity be. And the capacity for parking on site of automobiles was 28 that was agreed to. Now there's nothing magic with the number 30 versus 28, but it's a magnitude. So coming up with a plan here that now has 12 or 13 spaces is radically different. It's unacceptable. And to think that it's acceptable means that somebody was not on the job asking questions. The township engineer was part of that 28. What appeared to happen was that the landscape architect came up with the theory and said this out loud to me, and I heard that, well, because it was Green Acres money involved, it wasn't really necessary to have too much parking. Okay? The truth is that the landscape architect never discussed this with anybody at Green Acres, and that's not the case. Green Acres never controls parking in its facilities that it lends money for development. I'm familiar with that. The first time I applied for a Green Acres grant was in the early 70s when I had a project that I did in Newark. Let me just say they haven't changed that in all that time. So we would like to focus on some alterations and modifications to the current plan that address that problem. I'm not saying that it has to be 28, but it can't be 13, 14. It's got to be in the neighborhood of 25 or so. Otherwise, you're going to be penalizing people. Here. It's not that they'll all be used by seniors at one time, but there are other people who use that park and want to come birdwatch and want to park. And they don't want to park on the side because for whatever reason. One of the important other things here is on the parking, all the entire amount of parking, whatever that is, has been designed so that it's parallel parking on a curve. Not to fix that situation is pure negligence. Good, experienced drivers have trouble with parallel parking on a curve. Don't say, so some people are saying, well, if there are old folks there and they can't parallel park on a curve, maybe they shouldn't be driving. Well, that's just hogwash. There's no rationale behind that. In fact is, I will bet you, not a lot of money, a little bit, but if I took every single counselor in this room and I gave you that test, I bet you half to three quarters would not succeed and pass that test. It's not that easy, because it doesn't matter. I mean, unless you do it regularly, it's very difficult. And even if the few people who can do it, it's risky. It's prone to accidents. We're going to have, if we proceed and not fix that, we're going to have more fender benders and accidents than you can believe. And at some point, there'll be a personal injury or death. And I don't know if that's the legacy you want, but that's what you're headed for with the approach that's being taken. Be aware that this option, this parallel parking on a curb, is in most traffic engineers' guidelines. It's not even there. Why? Because it's not recommended for use. It's an exception. It's special. Not only do we have some of that, we have all the spaces that way. That is just unfair and ridiculous. In addition, I may point out, and I got some information today from someone that actually solution may put the township in violation of the American Disabilities Act. I think we need to be searching for solutions that work. This facility has the other part of the parking, the adequacy of the other part is right now. Immediately in front of the building, there are a few parking places. One is for a bus. Okay, that's good. Two are for handicap. That may work there or may not work there. I haven't seen exactly where they are on the site. But that doesn't recognize that area also has to function as a drop-off zone for people who bring their own cars and drop somebody off or pick somebody up. And when you only have that lane and one other lane for moving traffic, you're going to have blockages there. And it's really, you either have to create spaces for those places, people to wait for a few minutes, or it's not going to work. We also have other vehicles that come there. In other words, the senior bus waits there and is one of its intermediate stopping points. It certainly brings people and has been bringing more people there in recent months than ever before. But we also have people who arrive there with Access Link. That needs to be able to get in there and stop as well in that area, or to pick somebody up there. That's not provided for. It's not. There's not room for that. We have the museum's Artmobile that comes in and gives classes and stuff. There's no place for that in this. Spending on this entire project around $1 million and having these kinds of problems, it's ridiculous. It makes you almost ashamed that you could say you're from Montclair. It's progressive. It has a reputation of being progressive. This is not progressive. It's backward. And it's insensitive to people's needs. The fact that, and let me say that the largest responsibility for this problem rests with the township, because it didn't do its homework. It didn't hold any public hearings to let people. The architects that were hired for this job, the landscape architects, never went in the facility in the whole time to see how it was being used. That's ridiculous. I was at a meeting. The one meeting they held, it was Monday, March 19th. Okay? And and somebody asked a question, and I was sitting close enough to the architect that I heard the answer very clearly. And he said the question was, how do you propose to handle snow removal from an enclosed kind of thing that's contained on all sides? And he said the answer was, I never thought of it. That's appalling. Once the design was done, the Public Works Department, who would be responsible for doing that, should have been able to look at that and see it. That didn't happen. In fact, no city agency running programs in the facility or senior programs ever saw a design on paper prior to the time that it was bid. That's an internal error, and I think the council should be big enough to say, "Listen, we're not perfect. We blew one, but now we want to fix it." And I think this is very important. It's part of being, transparent and open. Not everybody's perfect. We all make mistakes, and even you council folks make mistakes. So, I'm not going to let you off the hook. And I hope the seniors in this community won't let you off the hook. This is a serious issue, and we need at this point to say we have to recognize there's a problem, admit it, and say we're going to move forward. We on the Senior Citizen Advisory Council and others that we know will be happy to cooperate with you in that. But we have been excluded too from this, even though our charge is to comment and make suggestions and recommendations. We have been pushed out. We have been ignored. And that's really makes us feel very good. A lot of people on the committee devote a lot of time and energy to moving Montclair ahead when it comes to issues for seniors. And they don't need to be kicked in the butt. They need to be saying, listen, this is the way it is. So redesign, we're participating in general theory, adding 6 more spaces. Okay? That's not enough. You don't take, the thing is, I can't even tell you, because the plans have changed, which spaces are in and which out. They never showed us a plan that says these are in and these are out. There was a tree in the place, and rather than take the tree down, they moved the road a little bit. That's fine. That's not a problem. But it took a parking place with it too. Makes sense maybe there, but overall, you have to look at the big picture. So I would suggest that the goal for the modification should be the elimination of all the parallel parking on a curve. Those are dangerous, they're not effective, and they're going to create problems here. I think that you could take the area without doing any work at all, right in front of the part of the driveway that's right in front, and take the parking that's there away and devote it to handling the buses and the drop off and all of those. That strip there. The curve is not real great in that area, so I think you could get by with that. And the senior bus access link, other drop-offs, library, museum, farmer's market truck, they could fit in that area well, and that would be good. Okay? The area that's sort of from there to the exit road on Valley Road, which is on the south of the exit one is a little bit, 100 or 200 feet south of the the current access, which the current access will be the only access. When the plan, well, it's the only access now. That area, there's only a few parking places there, and they really need to go because they don't need to belong there. The big area. Then I think if you add in that center area, that's what's called the green area. It's closer to Valley Road and directly across the parking lot or across the road from the Edgemont House. That they don't really need to be head on. If they were angled because of the one-way nature of the road, I'm pretty sure you could get 8 or 10 vehicles in there. I haven't measured and looked at it, and that would be that, and they won't be problems to park, and they won't be people can get in and out very easily. The biggest area where change is on the north side, which would be where you enter in the middle of that northern edge of the parking lot. If you took somewhere between 30 and 40 feet segment out of that, took the concrete block and the walkway out, and did parking in there that went north, and didn't put Belgian block in there, you could have a place where you could move snow in the winter off the whole facility and not have a problem. Now you say, I've gone into this a little more detail because we're not talking about rocket science, but I do have a background in landscape architecture and city planning, and have managed projects more complex than this. And so it seems that there are solutions. They're costly. If these had been done earlier, there might not have been any cost at all. But right now, it's going to cost $30,000-$40,000 probably. I don't, to fix it. But to go ahead and not get any more tension and conflict from the public, you're going to have to commit to that. If you're just going to go along and say, well, maybe we'll fix it when we get to it, that's not going to work. We're going to be out on the streets, I think. When I've heard from seniors, they're not comfortable with this. And frankly, even if seniors weren't using this facility at all, the comments that I've made still make sense. But even with seniors there, they even make more sense. So, again, this is an opportunity to correct a misstep. And I look forward to hearing what you're going to do. Are there any questions?
Yeah. No.
Thank you.
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I forgot to mention when I walked up here, I left petitions there. There's 275 names on there. If that's not enough for you, we could do another 275. It wouldn't be that difficult. Okay? There are people really interested. And, we haven't talked to all the 10,000 that made visits yet, but we can do that.
Thank you.
Are you follow up to what was just designed? Yeah. Okay, you should go.
Trina Paulus, 86 Elm Street. I'm here for this one, and I went up there today just to see where it was before I came here tonight. The nice thing about it is that you can go in one way and come out the other. That's the only nice thing about it for me. I've never been able to really park on the curve very well, and I haven't met many people who have. And the road isn't even big enough for proper parking, and the work going in and out and back and forth to try to make that thing work, and some other car passing you. It looks to me that somebody got taken away by a design element, so it looks pretty. But form follows function. I'm an artist. That's form follows function. There is no function taking place that I can see that fits anything except it looked pretty when nobody's there. Now, when I was there, it seemed to me the place, maybe this other gentleman is correct, it should be on the right side when you're facing the building toward the north, where you take off that Belgian block that Montclair seems to have a romance with. Oh my goodness, that stuff is so hard on cars and everything. It's not forgiving. There's nothing forgiving in this design. One side should not have any of that. And one side should, like for snow removal, I hadn't thought about, but when I looked there, it seemed to me the part between what is now the road and looks pretty definite, and up to Valley Road. That whole section seems to me should be the Belgian block removed, and you make parking places there. Now, maybe that's not the best way to do it, but something of that Belgian block just has to go. And it's just ridiculous. The thing is ridiculous to me. Just pretty and ridiculous. I also, before I quit here, I wanted to say something about the rent control. And I did sign the petition for the rent control that's on the website. What's the name of it, Mr. Scott? The name of your website is
Planet Civics.
Planet Civics, and you can sign the rent control appeal. The arguments against it on there were good, but it all depends on that affordable housing is well taken care of in Montclair, and I don't think it has been recently. So if you have good affordable housing, maybe you don't need rent control. But I also listen to WBAI sometimes on Monday at 8 o'clock at night. They have rent things, mostly about New York City. And they were telling about the rent requirements, the percentages that you're allowed to go up in New York rent-controlled apartments are like from 1 to 2% and all kinds of things, including Westchester and the city and all over. We're talking about much bigger percentages, and those seem, I think you just should know that 1 to 2% is what they allow in New York with their rent control. So please, folks, plan to change that parking lot up there. Thanks.
Good evening. That's it. That's all I'm going to say. Okay. I'm Penny Carey. I'm here as the board president for Aging in Montclair, also known as AIM. I'm speaking in support of the paper presented by the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. As I mentioned the last time that I spoke with you, AIM advocates increased access to all community buildings and events for seniors. This project, as proposed, will severely limit access, especially for seniors whose mobility, though impaired, does not reach the level needed in order to get a handicap parking permit. But, however, since it is generally agreed that the Edgemont Park Fieldhouse is not and was never intended to be the comprehensive senior center that Montclair needs, I would hope that this current controversy would lead to a renewed effort to identify and prepare a centrally located, accessible site where all senior-focused programs and activities can be performed and where all Montclair seniors can gather and feel welcome and valued. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'm Carolyn Luck, 137 Lorraine Avenue. I just want to say that I was very pleased when you addressed the needs of the growing population of seniors by establishing a Department of Senior Services. But I'm very disappointed that you have not fulfilled an important part of seniors' concerns, which is getting to places that they use for their activities, and I'm referring to the parking at Edgemont Park House. Particularly the curved driveway for parking is terrible. Anybody who has tried to park at the high school entrance knows how difficult it is to park on a curb. So I certainly hope you will address that. Also, there needs to be more parking for all the seniors. There are many of us, myself included, who find it difficult to walk for any great distance. And if activity is too far to walk, I don't go there. So I'm afraid if we don't increase the number of parking spots, we will lose a number of seniors attending. I hope you will revise this plan. I think it can be revised, and we're looking forward to hearing some solution to this problem. Thank you.
Yes.
My name is Maida Caleb Whitaker. I'm at 83 High Street, a 40-year resident of Montclair. I'm here just to make a statement about preserving Montclair's past, and in connection with the resolution that's up concerning Lackawanna Plaza, Resolution 14, I'd like to strongly suggest that you step back for a moment and amend some of the wording according to recommendations of the Historic Preservation Commission, etc., and consider this before passing any such resolution today. In other words, postponing the decision. I am really dismayed to see so much of Montclair's past being lost, just having witnessed the demolition of the former Aubrey Lewis house over the weekend at the south end of Montclair, but in general, seeing development go forward without enough consideration of the fine points of what this involves to the community. So again, I suggest stepping back from any resolution passing today and going through the steps to make it the best possible resolution. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Gail Abramowitz. I live at 51 North Mountain Avenue, and I'm also a member of the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee. I want to talk about the parking situation at Edgemont Park, and I wanted to. I'm now a senior, and I'm very sensitive to the fact that the parking has been dramatically reduced in number in the new plan. But I think we're forgetting another point, that even if seniors are not using that facility, the community uses that facility, and on any given day, besides the seniors, there's mothers with strollers and other groups of people who come and need parking and need to be able to safely get in and out of vehicles, and as it stands now, that's not possible. Thank you.
Anyone else? Well, we appreciate the input from the public and from the committee. Council, any comments?
Mayor, I just want to say, cleaning out my apartment the other day, and I found a nice proclamation that I got from the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee. Councilman Russo, an appreciation for your assistance and hard work on behalf of Montclair senior citizens. From Montclair Senior Citizen Advisory Committee, dated September 8, 1996, when I was much younger. I guess I must have done a lot of things when I was much younger. I just wanted to say this because I'm a neighbor of Ann LaPelle and several other people here, Ms. Dudley and others. It's such a dilemma for me to figure things out here. I've been on the council 18 years, and I understand that the council does not micromanage projects and get involved in the day-to-day operation of the government, and that the manager and the management staff really runs the town government. Now, we set policy. We can help rectify errors, hopefully, but we can't do everything that people always ask us to do. I keep trying to explain that to people who came up to me tonight and said, I'm here about Edgemont. Edgemont was never meant to be a senior center. Now that's the point that I think that we just heard from one of our speakers, and I agree with what she said. I think Penny said that we hope that this might generate more action to get a final senior center somewhere in town, which I've been advocating for years, going back to that 1996. Somehow previous councils could have maybe done something that they didn't get to do for financial reasons, whatever decisions were made. I regret to see that it maybe should have been done 10 years ago. But we're still moving in that direction. I know the mayor and council are committed to a senior center that will be very welcoming to seniors and accessible to seniors. The thing we always have to keep in mind is accessibility for those who have disabilities, not just older folks, but anyone, as many of you said. But I'm looking at this as a guy approaching 71 in November with a mother who's 99 now. And I'm always sensitive to those issues of mobility. My mother can't even walk, so it's a wheelchair-bound person now that I'm trying to assist. You know, I'm very sensitive to this, but I want to keep people focused on this. The park is a park, and the park was meant to be used by everybody. And we just happened to get a lot of activities, as Mr. Minard said, that people really gravitated towards for seniors there. It's great. But I'm not sure how we're going to resolve this. I'm hopeful we're going to talk about it as a council and see what we can do. I appreciate all the input you gave. Be assured that I'm looking at this from a sensitive point of view as being a 71-year-old with a 99-year-old mother. But we can't always do what everyone wants us to do. On the Lackawanna issue, some of you came up, and I just want to say this, you know, I was there when Haynes was still 15 years empty, deteriorating, a terrible building. And my last year as mayor in 2004, we finally got it settled. I wasn't there to see the groundbreaking the next year it was done, but it finally got settled. It took 15 years. I don't want to see Lackawanna go on for years and years and years. And I don't want to see the 4th Ward, which has been without a supermarket for 3 years, have its condition of a food desert. Now, we want to be all one Montclair. Yes, that was my theme, as everybody knows, when I ran for office. One Montclair. Progressive solutions. But when Councilwoman Baskerville and Mr. Scott said something in the paper the other day, it really rang true to me. We can't be just preserving buildings and structures. I do believe that we made mistakes when we had the Marlboro Inn torn down, and we did a lot of things that we destroyed valuable history. I do believe that, and I opposed a lot of that. I'm a preservationist. But I want to see us get these things done so that we don't have the situation we have with Haynes, which went on for 15 full years. And when Councilwoman Baskerville said we have to be as concerned about preserving a community and the neighborhood as we are about preserving a structure, a building, that is a very important thing to keep in mind. I want to see if we could preserve all this. I'd like to see us preserve the sheds and all. I don't want to see this go on for years and years, which I witnessed. I'm the eyewitness to this more than anyone on the council for 18 years, going back to the 90s. You cannot have a Haynes situation again. And you cannot have a food desert in the 4th Ward, because the 4th Ward, people all talk about one Montclair, all Montclair. The 4th Ward is the foundation of Montclair. That part of Montclair sustains Montclair. And that part of Montclair has been neglected and abused and not focused on properly for all the years I've been on the council. Not by this council, but by many people on the council over the years who neglected that part of town. And I'm happy to say that that's a part of town that I've always had a lot of connection with and support from. And I will defer to and respect the council members in each ward as they talk as council members of a ward. When they have a concern, when they have an interest in something, Councilwoman Schlager says, you know, we've got to make sure we don't destroy or wreck the park aspect of Edgemont. Or Councilwoman Baskerville says we've got to preserve the community in the 4th Ward. Or Councilman Herlock wants us to deal with something in the 1st Ward where I used to live, and I may be living again soon. But it's definitely something we need to look at as a whole. Okay, we want to preserve Montclair and advance it as a whole. So I appreciate all you said tonight. I'm sensitive to it. And I just hope we can work it all out, because Montclair is known as a progressive community that responds to the residents. Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, Mike, big dice.
As a regular traveler of Valley Road, I kept a close eye on the developments of the park,
And I noted as soon as the driveway started to take shape that it didn't make sense. I tried to raise alarms, didn't gain any traction, but I fully agree that there are better solutions to that parking situation at Edgemont Park, and I hope we as a council can do something to improve it.
Other council?
I just what Councilman Russo said is certainly holds true in a lot of ways. And for me, the entrance to the park house and the circular driveway it is a park, like the councilman said. It's a park, and it's meant to be green, and it's meant to have an aspect. It deserves a grand entrance. It deserves something special, and not just a big square cement parking lot, which is what we had in the past. When I first saw this plan, I thought it was elegant. I thought it was it was just lovely. And some of you have said, and I respect all of your views, that it might not. You might feel that it's not accessible, that it's not in keeping with getting the most out of the area that we have. But it's beautiful, and if there's somebody who worked at Montclair High School for 12 years, and I parked in the circle in the circle in front of Montclair High School on many occasions, it was a challenge every once in a while, but I got to learn how to navigate it, and it wasn't an issue. Mr. Friedman works at Montclair High School. I'm sure he parks there as well, but I think the park deserves something special and something beautiful, and I think that's what we got. And like I said, it might not be the most practical thing in some people's view, but I think it's lovely. And we could also, a lot of it is done. We could live with it. We could see how it goes. If we see in a year or so that it's really a problem for various groups, maybe it could be modified, or maybe we could do something. But at this time, it looks lovely. So that's it. Thank you.
I'm not sure, Mr. Mayor, what we're doing here.
Well, I just want to comment.
I'm just trying to find out what this is, because Mayor Russo brought up a couple of. Is this just freestyle, and we're talking about anything we want to talk about?
You're on.
Will we have another?
I don't think you're holding.
She's on. Oh, okay. I am. Will we have an opportunity when we're going to do Resolution 14 to speak on that particular one? Is this just responding to?
This is really responding to the SCAC presentation more than
okay.
I want time later.
All right, good.
So, yeah.
I'd just like to thank all of you for coming out, and I certainly agree with what you said, and I believe that wherever we do any type of development or whatever, that we should try to make it as accessible for as many people as we can, and do that with style. And I agree with you, Robin. Beautification is a wonderful thing too, but I think that we're doing some outstanding things in this township. I believe that this council is doing some outstanding things, but I think that we could do more in terms of just being more making things more accessible for everybody, regardless of abilities, and not just seniors, because there's a whole population of people out there with varied abilities and perception things and a whole host of other things. So I appreciate the information that you're sharing. Some of it I was not aware of in terms of the Olmsted and the different things like that, and I was not an active participant. No one asked my opinion in terms of what was going on, and I certainly do try very hard to defer to the council members that are in that area, and so as often as I possibly can, I try to support what the council people in that area say. But even as we had the discussion initially, I was not excited that this was something that was going to be the best design, but we'll see. Like Deputy Mayor said, we'll see. But I appreciate what you said, and I stand with you. If there are things that we can do to try to make it more user friendly, I certainly will do my best.
Any other comments? Just a few. No, I don't. Did you comment at all, Ian? I don't remember. Yeah, please go ahead. Yes, a couple people. And please limit it to 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. It's Ann LaPelle. I live at 10 Crestmont Road. Sometimes when we're trying to solve problems, we have to understand that it's a matter of community inclusion and that it's not a dichotomy between one thing or the other. The most important thing is to get the stakeholders together and come up with ideas that satisfy all the needs. And I think what we're talking about here is that we have an opportunity now to revisit something that may be beautiful but is not accessible. Not to see that there are intersections between what is good and what is good is blindsided. We want to take all the goods and we want to get them together and make something that's going to work. Inclusion, empowerment, that's what this township is about, not dichotomies. Thank you very much.
So I'm confused, Mr. Is there opportunity to revisit this? That's what I'm just, yeah. Okay, because I don't understand.
Yes. Yes.
Are we revisiting? Oh.
Virginia Cornu, 143 Claremont Avenue. And Mr. Russo, I've got 2 more years on you. So I would like to point out, Councilwoman Schlager, following what Ann has said, is that we don't have to choose between accessibility and beauty. We marry the two of them. There are many ways to make a grand entrance to the park. There can be an archway over it. There's all sorts of things that can be done in terms of plantings, of other design functions that make that driveway, which for all the reasons that Colin said, is really a very non-functioning, plus not particularly good looking. So I would really urge the council to think synergistically instead of divisively. And right now it seems like that is what has happened in the past. With the non-inclusion, no one, as Colin has pointed out to us in his report, no one was included in the planning of this as far as I can tell. I attended one meeting just by happenstance at the Park House, and the architects, the landscape, the couple who were doing the designing, clearly had no idea of who was using the park, who was using the Park House, that yes, seniors were coming there primarily during the day, but they seemed to have no idea of who else was using. Do you really want people who are coming there at night, if they're young people, to be parking on a curve that's dangerous? That doesn't make any sense to me. So I would urge the council and whoever the other stakeholders in the government are not to wait, because we know what happens when you put something off, it just gets put off. And we don't want to put this off, because we need to deal with this now before it's gone too far. And it's almost too far. Thank you very much.
Just a couple thoughts. One is to Councilor Slager's comments. When we look at what Edgemont Park was, and I think we've kind of lost perspective a little bit on the overall beautification of the park. One, when you look at the park and you saw benches that were dilapidated, lighting that looked like it was from another era. It was street lighting in the middle of a park, landscaping overrun, lights and aerators that were fickle to say the least, and pathways that, we talk about accessibility, but pathways that were horrific. When you look at the project now, we're seeing now, I'm sure everybody's seen the period lighting that restores it to the original lighting that was along Valley Road, and that's in the park now. New benches, new pathways, safer pathways, wider pathways, so people can move through better. The old street lights will get removed shortly by PSE&G. I think it will be a beautiful and appropriate place to be the focal point. All of our emblem now, not that one, but our emblem now for the town is that park, and some pointing and things that need to be done at the obelisk. Some additional water movement down by the clubhouse that will allow for less stagnant water. All kinds of things and clearing out some of that brush, improving some of the ironwork all around it. So the park itself, the beautification of the park, I don't think we should lose sight of. It's going to be a beautiful place for people to now come, and I think befitting of our township. The issue of the parking, and I know people talked a bit about the Olmsted. It was actually the Sun. It's not a Frederick Law Olmsted Park by any stretch of imagination. The Sun did an initial layout that looked at the curve in the front, and that's what the Van Hoffmans were trying to restore, or certainly get back to. And I personally am, and I believe in the notion of green is better. I just think that's what a park is all about. But I think I'm hearing that some members perhaps want to take a look at some other ideas. So I think we do have a committee which consists of Councilor Baskerville, Councilor Russo, and Councilor McMahon. I think the prudent thing to do, whether we want to be responsive, we want to be listening. I may not agree, but we certainly want to listen to what meet with. So I think it might be that committee, which is our senior, as you know, Ian is our committee. I think that three of them should meet with the committee and kind of go through some thoughts and ideas. It's construction is construction, so it's not. I don't think it's not a big deal to make. If there are, I don't know, but I'm one who I really have to be convinced, because I'm really want to be true to the original as much as we can. Not to the original, but I think a more park-like setting, if you will. But I think that would be the prudent course if anybody disagrees.
One great thing about Belgian block is easy to amend.
Well, yeah. Again, it's not, and that's one of the reasons why we use it, because it's much cheaper to do than the concrete curb. But anyway, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that does. What I'm saying is, and I hope people understand again, what Ann said is the key. Someone else said it too. Is a marriage between the beauty and the accessibility, or it's the goods, two goods. You don't have to say one is the exclusion of the other. So the idea that you came up with is what we're going to try to look at. We want to do the good of the beauty and the good of the accessibility for seniors and all people. So maybe we'll be working on this. Thank you.
And if I may too, just one more comment. I think we want to be careful not to confuse solutions with needs, and by that I mean the real need is to try to get people to be able to get closer to the clubhouse quicker and quicker, but easier, correct? More to facilitate access. And one of the solutions is to have parking closer to the building. That's a solution, right? Mm-hmm. But another solution, for example, and I'm not saying this, but I'm just kind of thinking a little out of the box thinking. Maybe maybe we can do some valet parking. That people, I'm again. What I'm saying is, let me finish. Let me finish. Let me finish. Then I could also argue, we can't afford to make changes. So I'm not closing my mind to to any changes. I'm saying that there are other ways of achieving the same thing. Now, you may say that that's unworkable, but what I'm saying is, in a conversation, you throw out in any you throw out ideas. I mean, you came up with some people said some things here today that I thought myself were laughable, but I wouldn't disrespect you and laugh at those ideas because they're your ideas, your thoughts, and just like the reaction you had to what I just said. If I were in a meeting now, I might say, well, there's not mutual respect because I just threw out an idea. I'm not saying I'm not even saying I'm advocating that. I'm just saying that's something that somebody could say. And so when we have this, either my way or the highway approach, which ironically some people are saying of the council, I actually just saw that demonstrated when I just said, here's the thought. I didn't say I advocated it, but it was the reaction. Now you're putting me on the defensive. I don't even say I advocate that, but it's a thought.
It is.
So I think if the conversation is going to move anywhere, we have to at least be open to different thoughts and ideas. And again, we may not disagree. It's fine, but if we at least have to be comfortable in throwing out alternatives to try to get to the point. And that's what I'm saying. It's not that having a million parking spaces and then we're good to go is necessary. That's a solution, but it's the need. How to get closer. And again, there may be other ways to solve it. And I think if it's addressed, if the conversation is addressed in that spirit, I think we'll get somewhere. But if it's going to be myopic in that sense, I don't think it's going to get very, very far because we're locked into positions and locked into viewpoints and not open to what other people may think. And again, just throwing out ideas. So I think it's very, very careful. And I think quite frankly, I think it's a great example of what happens when we automatically turn off people and they just have a thought.
I
Yes.
agree. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I welcome the opportunity to meet with my colleagues on the Services Committee, and I thank you for affording us the opportunity. I'm sure after we meet, we would like to include the Deputy Mayor and our senior the SCAT Committee and the AIM Committee, and then try to come back to the full body with some suggestions. So thank you very much for offering us the opportunity.
And I just want to say I didn't mean any disrespect to our esteemed Deputy Mayor. It's just that we have some restrictions with four of us. It's a public meeting, and it's some other issues. But that's why I just wanted to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we're going to move on to our. Oh, you want to look?
If we're going to vote, we got to run right back.
Okay, you want to potty break?
voting?
Yes. Okay, we'll do a potty break.
We're not voting.
No, we're just gonna do. Yeah, not gonna vote anything. I was just gonna go. I was gonna go ordinances. Yeah, but go ahead. We'll take a 5-minute potty break.
A break?
Restroom break. Okay, explain to me. We've always had 8 years elementary.
Yeah, 2-3 minutes.
K-12. We always call K-12.
No, we're talking about growing.
But I don't think Europe does what he does.
It's getting hot in here. They had to put a fire extinguisher. That looks like a Model T. I probably can't even use that one.
Can't pick it up.
Uh-uh.
So,
That would put out all kind of fires.
so she's gonna read it?
Like with Bob.
You're gonna read it?
I did. I figured out how to do. You can close it now. Yeah, I'm a hot-blooded person. I'm saying. When I came in, I was mad.
Okay.
I couldn't open any of them. I said, "Oh, somebody came in here and lock them up." Well, they are all locked. And this one, they had drilled closed. But
I'd like to call the meeting.
But close it.
You guys
Yeah, I
ready?
know. You know.
I'd like to call the meeting back to order, please.
I know y'all.
We have some pending ordinances. Just for the public and those watching edification, ordinances A and B are going to be, we're going to have the hearing, but we're going to withdraw those because they have been revised as reflected in ordinances C and D, which we discussed at our last conference meeting. So, Madam Clerk.
Madam Clerk, is your microphone on? Is your microphone on?
Ordinance A has been published and posted according to law. This is an ordinance amending Montclair Code number 65, which refers to affordable housing.
Is there anyone present who wishes to be heard in this ordinance? Again, Mr. Scott, I think C and D these are not going to be voted on. They're going to be withdrawn. So, but you'll have C and D correspond to, you know what I'm saying? Yes, yes. I'll close the public hearing. Is it all in favor?
Aye.
I make a motion to withdraw this ordinance.
Second?
Roll call.
Counselor Baskerville?
Yes.
Counselor Hurlock?
Yes.
Counselor McMahon?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes.
The second ordinance amends Montclair Code 347 and refers to zoning.
Again, I'm asking the question, but I'm saying I don't really want to hear from you. Want to open it? We'll open the hearing. Anyone want to speak to this? Right, right. I will close the public hearing, and I make a motion. All in favor to close, by the way?
Aye.
I make a motion to withdraw this ordinance.
Second?
Roll call.
Counselor Baskerville?
Yes.
Counselor Hurlock?
Yes.
Counselor McMahon? Yes. Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes.
Now the next
Oh, sorry. Yes.
is a revised ordinance amending Montclair Code number 65 referring to affordable housing.
And before I open up to the public, which Mr. Karasik, you have a couple of amendments.
Yeah, I do. This ordinance was sent to the planning, referred to the planning board for comments. The planning board made certain comments, and based on those, we have some non-substantive amendments to propose, and I'm going to read them. Basically, the first set of amendments is just withdrawing references to color, which no longer exists, and removing a duplicative section. So, Section 6, the amendments are on Section 65-3A6, striking out lines that read subject to the approval of color and subject to the approval of color. Those two lines are removed, clauses. Section 65-3C2D, we're removing additional units may be approved by COA if the municipality demonstrates a successful completion of its initial market to affordable program. That's taken out because there's no COA. 65-4A2G, we're removing the line as offered or approved by COA. And in 65-4B1A, we're removing the line as offered or approved by COA. Those all came from the planning board, and I recommend them. 65-8, we're deleting all of subparagraph B, which is subparagraph regarding accessibility. And the reason it's being deleted is the entire subparagraph is being adopted as part of the change to section 340 to chapter 347, which is the ordinance D that's up for tonight. So it would be duplicative to leave it in chapter 65, and that also was a recommendation of the planning board. So those are the amendments, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
And they're
Anyone?
non-substantive, I'm sorry.
Right.
None of them are substantive and require introducing the ordinance.
Thank you. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this particular ordinance?
Okay, good evening. William Scott, co-chair of the Montclair Housing Commission. And the reason I wanted to make sure that that was on the record, because the last Housing Commission meeting we had, we went over both of these ordinances thoroughly. Okay, we spent about a couple hours there. And, we were we were going to provide information back to Janet Talley as far as some of the recommendations that we we're going to, we'd like to see implemented in the change, okay, in the affordable housing ordinance. And I copied in our liaison as well, but I wanted to make sure that those recommendations, I went and I pulled the current resolution that we're talking about tonight off the website, and I don't see those recommendations, and I'm not sure if they're being considered.
I'm not even aware.
And I'll add one more point to that. Also, when I attended the last planning board meeting, they were interested in seeing the recommendations that were coming from the Housing Commission and requested Ms. Talley forward those recommendations from the Housing Commission back to the planning board for their review as well.
The only thing I can say is I spoke to Ms. Talley this afternoon, and she had said that she just received an email today from the Housing Commission making certain recommendations, and I didn't see your communication, so I don't know what they were, but they were described to me as things which would be additions, not necessarily objections to what is here already, but additional material, additional provisions that you wanted. And if that's, I don't know if that's a correct description or not. But.
I don't think it's a correct description. I think, just as an example, we took a look at the rehabilitation program that that is administered within the affordable housing ordinance, and we wanted to see increases in the funding, the minimum in funding that would be allowed for rehabilitation.
Scott, where are you on?
I'm on section 6-3. As a matter of fact, the first program, they talk about rehabilitation program.
Oh,
and I think
6-3. Is that what?
We don't have page numbers. That was.
Are you?
Might be 65.
65.
Yes, excuse me. Well, yes, 65, and it's ordinance 018-024. Okay, and that's the one I pulled down off the website. So that's the one we're discussing now.
So that's
65,
024.
I see 65-4.
Program.
Yeah, stop the first one where it says program.
Oh, I see.
Okay, one of the programs was the rehabilitation program.
Weatherization at the top.
Weatherization.
Okay.
Oh, here's that.
Weatherization. That's that point. Yeah, I think the idea was that the recommendation like that is something which, I mean, we should and can, and I imagine the council would want to consider, but it doesn't necessarily, we haven't even touched that program at all in these amendments. The idea would be that those recommendations would be considered and maybe the basis for further amendments, as opposed to necessarily causing the council to not to act on what's before them tonight. That's because it's a new idea, and it's probably a very good idea, but I'm just saying it's a new idea.
Well, that's one of the new ideas. I'll put it that way. Okay, and as I mentioned, if you adopt the new ordinance, it's adopting the new ordinance in its entirety for affordable housing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so as the task of the Housing Commission, we have the we have the option to make recommendations to the council. Now, maybe we didn't do it in a timely manner because we really did go back and forth, and we spent a fair amount of time going through the entire document, and we wanted to make sure we got that back to Janet in a timely manner. So that might have been an issue. So I can't argue that point, but we wanted to make sure if we're going to be adopting this new ordinance, we wanted to take the opportunity to make some changes or amendments, whatever the wording council attorney wants to use at that point. Because if you heard the suggestions, maybe you could make those amendments, and if they're not substantive, as he just mentioned, they could be added tonight.
And so, Mr. Scott, and thank you so much for all of your continued work. The very detailed remarks that you shared actually came after our last meeting. At the last council meeting, I introduced the changes that we had discussed as a group at the housing thing, and the body incorporated those. One of them had to do with in perpetuity, and the other something else. Then you came back with the very detailed, descriptive thing, which came after our last meeting. So I'm not even sure everybody here.
Okay.
Did everybody get that copy? Okay.
Okay. Well, just bear with me. I just like to mention them. I mean, when
Sure.
we get the opportunity to deal
absolutely.
with them,
Thank you.
We'll move forward with that. Okay.
Mhm.
So, as I mentioned, one of the recommendations was the increase the funding. Right now, the minimum funding is $10,000 for each unit as it relates to rehabilitation, and we'd like to see that increase from $10,000 to $15,000. Okay. That's one of the programs that you have within this ordinance. And then I'll just, you don't have to comment on it, I just want to.
Okay, is that,
Number 4. Okay. Thank you.
We could do that without introducing the ordinance.
okay,
I mean, it's,
okay. I just
it's a
wanted
close,
to,
it's a close call. I haven't thought about it. I see Councilor Gerlach, who's very knowledgeable about these things, but I think suggesting that perhaps it is a substantive amendment.
But-
I think,
yeah, let's see the rest of it, forget it, yeah.
And then there's the Market to Affordable program, which is,
Where are you going, Mr. Scott?
you're still under the program section. It's on the next page. Let's see. It's item C. It says A, Market to Affordability. That's the program. Okay.
Right.
And that program, the municipality will provide a minimum of $25,000 per unit to subsidize each moderate income unit, and or $30,000 per unit to subsidize each low income unit with additional subsidies depending on the market price of rent in the municipality. So, that one I didn't have a problem with. That one I was comfortable with. I didn't want to make that change, but I was just going through the programs and I just wanted to understand what was in place at that point in time. Okay. Let's see. There was also a program that was introduced which had something to do with down payment assistance for applications or applicants, and it dealt with the applicant borrowing 2% towards the purchase of a new property, an affordable housing property. But the maximum on that amount, I believe, was only $2,000. Okay.
It's interesting.
I think Mr. Karasik will have to find the amount, but my understanding, I think that there was a limitation on the amount that could be acquired, which was 2%.
Oh, yes.
It's D3 under 65-3. Program capital letter D, section 3 is with the 2%.
And these funds that I'm talking about in terms, they're coming out of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. So these are not tax dollars from
Right.
the residents.
Right.
So I just want people to be clear
Right.
that we're not giving money away, that this
Correct.
is money that's coming out of the Affordable Housing Trust.
Correct.
Okay.
With the minimum of 15?
What-
And then this is a maximum?
This is the maximum, shall be 2% for the maximum, no, shall be 2%.
Then this is voluntary. Oh.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, so it's different.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Scott, what was it, what was the change you were looking for there?
See, I thought when we had the discussion, we got to a number, I thought it was maybe $2,000 that was the cap on that 2%.
I don't see that.
I don't see any
I
list.
don't think it's here, Mr. Scott.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on it. And if that's not the cap, if that's not the issue, then that's not a problem. But I thought I had gone through this kind of thoroughly. I thought that there was a cap of $2,000, and I wanted to see if that cap could be extended to $4,000, and if that 2% was limiting the person to the $2,000 cap. But I wanted to be
I would say don't put any limit on it.
okay.
Because it's as the prices go, it very well may be that you
That's the
exceed
point.
even.
That's exactly the point.
So I think no limit is better than there's nothing here to limit it. So
And then the next item, which is under E, the voluntary extension of affordable control program. The town shall dedicate a maximum of $10,000 for each dwelling unit that extends the deed restriction. I just would think after 25 years of deed restriction, sort of a carrot of $10,000 really wasn't sufficient enough. I would like to see that increased to at least $15,000.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And those are the only ones that I have at this point.
So the substantive changes are with the $15,000 for the rehabilitation program and for the affordability extension.
Mr. Mayor, on the rehabilitation program, I hadn't looked at it, I wasn't looking at it when I talked to you before, but it's, the $10,000 is set forth as a minimum. So we can already take it up to $15,000.
That's change the minimum.
Yeah, but I think what Mr. Scott's suggesting is saying that we'll spend at
Right.
least 15 on. Yeah, you can spend 10, but he's suggesting he's putting. Because in fact, I recall that we did that with Mr. Polton's project.
Correct.
We increased it from 10 to 15.
I guess what I just meant was we could spend 15 under the way it's worded right
Correct.
now.
Correct.
If we want, and the council could just direct that 15 be the minimum, but I understand if we're making more changes, we could do that, but it's not necessary.
So you're saying we could direct the 15 as
Well, we
a
could determine a policy on how you want to spend this money.
But that leaves too much left unsaid for if it's not this body sitting, right? So if somebody else comes in and they said, "Oh, we're fine with 10,000," then it leaves that as an option if we change it.
You're right, and
to
I'm not
15.
suggesting we don't amend it. I just meant that
Right.
we could implement it until it's amended.
And
and
I do hear our council's advice in that, and I know we've had this discussion before. If there's a different body sitting here, they can just change this anyway.
I don't disagree.
Yeah.
Any number.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Yeah.
But it does state the Township of Montclair will dedicate a maximum of $10,000. Okay, so that is a maximum. So I'm saying take that 10,000 to 15,000 as a maximum. Now in the future, if somebody wants to increase or decrease it, but I'd like to increase the maximum. See an increase in the maximum at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So if I may, Mr. Scott, I'm going to suggest that we pass this as is, and then amend it to the 15,
Okay.
and we can actually introduce that. We can introduce that this evening, right? We can introduce. Am I correct, Mr.?
We could introduce an amendment to that section, and as long as it's clear enough so that we can write it down, because we don't have it written in front of us. But if it's a matter of just amending that section and changing the 10,000 to 15,000, yes, we can introduce that this evening.
Okay. Good.
Good.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I too would like to.
Yeah, actually,
Oh, I'm sorry. That's correct. Deirdre Malloy. I am a resident of Montclair. I live on Lexington Avenue, and I am a member of the Montclair Housing Commission, as well as the Montclair Environmental Commission. And I am speaking on behalf of the same resolution, and I guess mostly it's just a dialogue, just some considerations, and I have a couple of questions. Regarding 65-9, the affirmative marketing requirements, item C, it says the affirmative marketing plan shall include a local preference for all households that live and work in Montclair Township, which I think is amazing. It's really a good thing that this is happening. But my question is, what if a developer is using federal funds? Should this include language to speak to marketing to Region 2 or specific municipalities or counties?
If we're using federal or state funds that have their own requirements, in other words, override our local preference law and require us to go with that throughout the state or throughout the county or whatever, then that basically preempts that section. We don't need to, I think, have additional language. We just have to follow the prevailing law. So it's an issue, of course, but our section would conflict with it, but it would be overridden essentially, so it wouldn't matter that it's there.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. Okay. Also, another question is, does it make sense to review the affirmative marketing plan since it does have COA language in it?
no, we did. I think we eliminated it.
Okay, no, okay, so, but as it relates to the federal funds, then it would revert back to the original plan.
Well, I think what would happen, Ms. Malloy, is that if to Mr. Karaski's point, let's say it's a requirement they did use federal funds. In that requirement, it's going to be the methodology
Right.
that they have to use to market the community. So I think it would be more dictated by the funding than it would be here.
Okay,
So
I just wanted to
yeah, right.
point that out and get clarity on how the municipality is expecting to address it. That's it. Okay. With regard to the administrative agent,
Could you just?
oh, I'm sorry. Okay, that is going to be on,
It's D.
well, let me stay
D
on.
on 65-9D?
Yes, that is
Same
correct.
page,
But
same
yeah.
page.
I'm sorry, 65-9B?
Yes.
Yeah.
D, okay.
I just want to make note that the municipality should seriously consider and review any RFP and capabilities of anyone who is submitting to do the administrative agent procedures. As it stands presently, there is no administrative agent within the municipality that has done this. And I'm pointing that out because the procedure is pretty specific and very detailed. I was brought in as a consultant for Talbot Village to work with the current administrative agent to do 95% of this process. And I just want to make sure that as a body and even as a planning board, there is a review of the capabilities to make sure that they have the proper staffing in place, the staff has the proper training and understands the procedure and the requirements, because there could be significant consequences if they're not followed, and that would end up falling back on the municipality if there's no review of the capabilities and reporting of same. So I just wanted to point that out. The other thing is, it talks about in 65-12,
price restrictions for restricted ownership units, association fees and things of that nature. And item B, it states that the administrative agent shall provide, shall approve, might put my glasses on, that might help. Administrative agents shall approve all resale prices in writing and in advance of the resale to assure compliance with the foregoing standards. The administrative agent needs to know how to do that. They need to understand the pricing models and calculations and be able to work with the developer and understand that as well. So I just want to point that out. So whoever the administrative agent is should thoroughly understand this process. And I think it would be helpful if the Housing Commission could potentially be a part of any review process. We have co-chairs and expert in this process, and in fact is a part of a firm that does this for several municipalities. And myself, having gone through the process for one of the developments here, I think it's important that we might be able to catch something or maybe make additional recommendations. And that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on this ordinance? Okay. I will close the public hearing. I think that's where we are, right? Council comments? Roll call?
Just to make it clear that we're voting on as amended.
No.
I thought we were going to do as
we're
is and
voting
then the amendment.
and then we're
Oh,
going to
no,
do the
I meant
amendment.
the amendments I read out.
Yes, as you read out earlier, yes.
Yes,
Yes.
that's what I meant.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Counselor Baskerville?
Yes.
Counselor Hurlock?
Apologize for just a second. This is the lawyer in me again. That's what you got. So we're voting on Mr. Karasik's amendments, but not Mr. Scott's amendments. Is that correct? And then we would vote on Mr. Scott's amendment at a later date. Is that the plan?
Well, I think we're going to try to introduce it tonight.
Tonight? Okay. Well, that's okay. That's still a later time, I guess. Then.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yes, short time. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor McMahon?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Slager?
Yes.
Counselor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes.
And the next is a revised ordinance amending Montclair Code 347, which deals with zoning.
Anyone present to address the council on this ordinance? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Council comment? Roll call?
Counselor Baskerville?
Yes.
Counselor Hurlock?
Yes.
Counselor McMahon?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Counselor Deputy Mayor Slager?
Yes.
Counselor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes. We'll add J as the ordinance amending.
Right. I'll
Does-
read the.
Hold on a second. Just a question. Does that delay the final adoption of these ones if we reintroduce another amended version?
No, it doesn't, because what you adopted will take effect 20 days according to law, and the new amendment will take effect if it's passed by the council next time around. But meantime, what you did tonight would.
Good. Thank you.
That's a good question. Thank you.
Okay, we have some new business ordinances. Ordinance E is an ordinance authorizing establishment of a government energy, easy for me to say, energy aggregation program. Is there a mover?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Well, I just want to say that it's a long time coming that we've been working on this to be a partner with other towns that we've been asked to do this, and I think it's a very good thing we're doing, and I'm happy to finally come to the point of introducing this ordinance.
Okay, and if I may, Mr. Stafford, if Mr. Russell could just quickly give us the towns that we're joining with?
Of course. Please.
Gray Russell. The other 5 towns are Maplewood, Millburn, South Orange, and then Verona and Glen Ridge.
Thank
But
you, sir.
This ordinance doesn't join in the cooperative purchasing. This ordinance simply establishes the council as the lead agency for the township. So the joining with the other 5 towns, that will be a next step after if council passes this ordinance.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
If I may, Gray, and it's not really subject to this currently, but I have a client in Bloomfield, and I noticed that they had an opt-out card for this. When this goes into effect, will our citizens be given an opt-out card? Or?
I'm not sure what you mean by an opt-out card, but everybody will be automatically in unless they choose that they don't want to. Then they
the opt-out is a card came to them and told them, if you fill this out, you opt out.
Absolutely.
So that type of thing will happen.
Yep.
Okay,
yes.
thanks.
They'll have multiple ways that they can pull out if they don't want to save money for cleaner energy.
Well, that brings me to a question. Why would we not flip it? Why would we not have an opt-in?
Because nobody signs up for that. Nobody does that. So that's never worked in New Jersey, and no municipalities do it that way. It never works. It just never works. You get a very low participation rate. So this way, it's so easy for anybody to pull out, and it just means that everybody, for the aggregator, for the supplier to bid, they need to know the amount of kilowatts and the amount of accounts that are going to participate.
So if you want to opt out, is there a finite time to opt out, or can you opt out 3 years from now?
3 years from now, you can opt out anytime you want to.
So from what I've heard from some people who have done this privately at their own home without having a group effort,
right?
That they saw their bills go down for a short time and then
Right.
they go up, and it's just like insurance. Sometimes when you pay a premium and you change agents and you get a really good deal, and little by little, you're right there where you started before you saved any money. So if that happens, you can opt out at any time.
Yes, and that can't happen, Deputy Mayor. That's why this.
What do you mean it can't happen?
That can't happen. If the company went out of business and changed, then everybody is automatically, without having to take any action, goes straight back to the default PSE&G supplier. So that's the whole purpose of doing an aggregation. Different than an individual has no capability to barter, but as a group, we set a contract with all the other towns with the supplier, and then if the company that sets a rate, and then if in 6 months they say we can't supply you anymore at the same rate, then they default, and everybody goes straight back to PSE&G's supply rate, paying a little bit more.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr.
Actually, Ms. Russell, if I could. So the default is you're in the program.
Correct.
Unless you say you don't want to be in the program.
That's correct.
But on a practical level, how many people are going to pay attention to this? Because I can see the complaints coming now, and we're going to get them. That I was in this program, all of a sudden you changed me, you didn't talk to me, I didn't know this was happening, blah, 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 blah. So on a practical level, though, how is that really going to work?
Do you mean that if someone, let's say they read in the paper that everybody in Montclair is now saving money and paying less for their electricity, and they decide, I don't want to do that, I don't want to save money and I don't want cleaner energy, then all they have to, again, they either have a card or will have a web presence, or they contact PSE&G. They'll have multiple ways.
And with all due respect, don't put it like, oh, you don't want to save money, you don't want to have clean energy. That's not necessarily the issue, because we've seen where it could go up.
It can't.
After a while. I disagree, so we'll have to agree to disagree on this. But my concern, though, again, is that there's a practical consideration here that people are going to automatically be changed, and they may not like that, because if it was an opt-in, I'd feel much different about it, like Councilor Schlager, I'm sorry, Deputy Mayor Schlager. But this is a lot different, and I know the phone calls and emails and text messages we're going to get, and I have a real concern about that. So I'm still not convinced that that's going to necessarily work.
Right. Well, there are a couple of things to keep in mind. One is that PSE&G switches us all the time, and none of us know anything about it. They switch suppliers on a regular basis. They switch the supplier who's supplying us with our electricity multiple times during the year. They don't notify any of us. We don't know anything about that. This will be a hard and fast contract that we set, not just with every Montclair resident, but with every resident of 6 municipalities in Essex County, going to bid to find the supplier that is the most transparent, the most solid, the most that is registered with the BPU as the one that is going to be the most that is going to give us the lowest rate and the cleanest supply of electricity. So again, it's true. There will be people who say this is the first time I've heard of it, even if we publicize this as we publicize it. We're still months away from going to bid. And yes, you will have people who will say, I don't want to do it, and they can simply pull out. But that's got to be fair to all of the other residents of Montclair who want to save money for healthier, cleaner energy.
So when PSE&G is making these changes now, they're not doing it to save money for their consumers and making it cleaner
Correct.
energy?
That's
They're
correct.
just changing.
They switch based on their own rates and how they choose their suppliers.
Thank you.
Mayor, could I just ask one question? Who sends you the bill?
PSE&G.
Still get the same bill.
Okay.
It's all the same.
Yeah, I just want to ask you, this is something we've been a long time working on. I know there's some reservations, but the consumer aspect of it is a positive thing. And I just want to clarify again, Ray, this just gets us started in collaborating with these 5 other towns that are a little bit ahead of us. But they've been looking to join with us, and we've been looking to join with them. So it just gets the process started. It's not the final step.
No, not at all. This just gets us started on that process. The program, which is what you are establishing here, really means now we can begin with our energy agent to get the data from PSE&G of how many kilowatts all of our accounts add up to, look at all the other towns, how much kilowatts they add up to, and then they start to write the RFP, and they share that back with council and all of the councils. And again, Maplewood as the lead agency will all have time to review, to see what the RFP is looking for, and then they go out to bid. And then if it comes back and they say, we cannot give you cleaner energy for a lower price, then nothing happens. Then the
What I was
contract
concerned
doesn't
about,
happen.
just as Councilors Schlager and Herlock were saying, if we think that this is not good, we can pull out of the whole
Absolutely.
idea. So it's just the first step of getting us to start to collaborate with some, I think they're pretty good towns that we're talking about, but that's a collaboration without the end could be changed if we decide ourselves as a council it's not good.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Russell.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
Mickey. Okay. Roll call?
Yes. Councilor Hurlock?
No.
Councilor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schlager?
No.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes.
Thank you.
F is ordinance amending Montclair Code 82-40, certification of animal control officers. And I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Councilor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes. G is an ordinance amending 0-15-19, creating certain offices and positions in the Township of Montclair and salary ranges thereof. And it's the position of Information Technology Help Desk Technician. And I so move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call?
Councilor Baskerville?
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock?
Yes.
Councilor McMahon?
Yes.
Councilor Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schlager?
Yes.
Councilor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes. H is an ordinance also creating certain positions and appointments and fixing the salaries thereof, and these are for management non-union group 2015 through 2018. And I...
Mayor.
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize, Mr. Stafford. You have a.
Thank you. I do. I have to apologize to the governing body. I need to make 3 changes to page 3. If you look at the top of page 3, there is a longevity table, and it is my fault that 3 of the numbers on that table are incorrect. The numbers that should be there are the numbers that were at the previous ordinances table. I'm going to tell you what they are. The first number is 1.5. That should be 2%. It should be the same as on the other, the previous ordinance, the current ordinance. The number that says 4.5% should be 5%, and the number that says 7.8 should be, 7.5 should be 8. Those errors, the percentages including half, are my fault. I inadvertently wrote the wrong numbers on the sheet that I had typed. It's just my mistake, and I apologize for that. But those numbers that I'm giving you now, 2, 5, and 8, are the current numbers, and that's what they should read. Correct.
Oh, everybody clear on this one?
Yeah.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Counselor Baskerville.
Can you come back to me, please? I have to review one more thing.
Counselor Hurlock.
Yes.
Counselor McMahon.
Yes.
Okay.
Counselor Russo.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Slager.
Yes.
Counselor Spiller.
Yes.
Mayor Jackson.
Yes.
Counselor Baskerville.
Yes.
Thank you.
I is an ordinance amending 0519 as well, creating certain positions and fixing the salaries thereof, and that is for the superintendent of parking. I'll move it. I have a discussion. I'll move it. Discussion. I'm just wondering, in terms of the person to fit that position, is that, you think that top is sufficient?
I think so. We did the leadership team and the finance department did a statistical analysis of similarly situated municipalities, and we believe that these numbers are sufficient to draw a person
Okay.
to
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been moved in second. Roll call.
Counselor Baskerville.
Yes.
Counselor Hurlock.
Yes.
Counselor McMahon.
Yes.
Counselor Russo.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Slager.
Yes.
Counselor Spiller.
Yes.
Mayor Jackson.
Yes. Jay, Mr. Carassa.
J is an ordinance to amend Chapter 65 of the Montclair Code, specifically Chapter 65-3, capital E, subsection 5, to change the maximum of $10,000 to $15,000.
Maximum.
Well, it's the only number in there.
Okay.
I can read it to you.
I just want it for clarity purposes on the record.
It's the max, okay, let me bring it out.
Is it good to be 31?
Dedicated maximum of $10,000 for each dwelling unit, that's how it reads now.
Right.
That extends the deed restriction. And the change is, to change that from township of Montclair will dedicate a maximum of $15,000 for each dwelling unit that extends the deed restriction.
And just to further clarify, this is for our voluntary extension of affordability controls program.
That's correct.
I'll move it.
Second.
A discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Baskerville.
Yes.
Counselor Hurlock.
Jeff, Mr. Scott, if you could just, I'll let you, go ahead.
We did it. We did it, and that's what I was just talking about, Mr. Scott. You're absolutely right. It's in 2 places. It's in
The rehab section also has changed.
I thought, yeah, that's what I thought too.
He wants to
15.
Okay.
Right.
Well, yeah, but I thought we could do the 15 because I said 10. Well, let's make that amendment as well, Mr.
Minimum
Carassa.
15.
We're also amending chapter 65, section 3A4. And that section reads, the Township of Montclair shall dedicate a minimum of $10,000 for each unit to be rehabilitated through this program, and that number will be changed to $15,000. The Township of Montclair shall dedicate a minimum of $15,000 for each unit to be rehabilitated.
We good, Mr. Scott?
Don't move.
Another point. This is from balanced housing funds. The funding for this is from balanced. Correct.
Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, just a question to the attorney. So in the event that there are some modifications being made and the cost is less than the 15,000, what happens in that instance?
I mean,
Well,
as a practical matter,
yeah.
30 years of, you can put.
These improvements have to be capital improvements. They can't be just repairs.
Yeah.
Significant improvements to that, things like this. So I think the mayor's said is practical. It shouldn't matter.
Yeah, when you do, you're gonna do cabinetry, new bathrooms.
Right.
You're gonna be
Get a better
there before you
quality
know it.
cabinet.
Okay. Roll call?
Counselor Baskerville?
Yes.
Counselor Hurlock?
Yes.
Counselor McMahon?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Slager?
Yes.
Counselor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes. We have some items 1 through 12, which are on a consent agenda. Does anyone have any reason to remove any of these items from the consent agenda?
No.
Then I will move the consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call?
Counselor Baskerville?
Yes.
Counselor Hurlock?
Yes.
Counselor McMahon?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Slager?
Yes.
Counselor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, could I just say, I just want to put on the record that I did not either participate in or give any advice regarding resolution 18-149, which I have a conflict.
Which is item 6.
Excuse me?
Item 6.
6.
That's correct.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I might add to the mayor and council that all the appropriate procedures had been followed with this transfer, and it was an inactive license, and now it will be moved to a new license called No Ifs, and it will be situated at 499 Bloomfield Ave and operating as the Montclair Social Club.
Here, here.
That's interesting.
So can we join? Can we join?
Wow.
It'll be active, right? It's an active social club?
I hope so.
Well, it depends.
Right? Your name's Carmine.
Resolution requesting, item 13 is a resolution requesting approval of items. This is a click it or ticket grant, and I so move.
Second.
I think that there's a couple of zeros missing.
Where?
Second to last
13.
paragraph. Second to last.
Really?
Oh, that is the typographical error, yes. The number is $5,500.
Okay.
Not $50.
All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
Resolution 14, Councilor Baskerville.
Yes, Resolution 14. Resolution 14 is in support of current Lackawanna Plaza plan. Whereas Lackawanna Plaza was redeveloped in 1984, featuring a full Pathmark grocery store, ancillary retail and commercial uses, and whereas the Pathmark served as a convenient, value-priced supermarket for more than 30 years, and whereas the Pathmark closed in November 2015, depriving the community of its only proximate supermarket for nearly 3 years, and whereas the current by right plan before the planning board will further invigorate the eastern gateway of Montclair with an appropriately scaled, much needed, and long overdue mixed use walkable community featuring a full supermarket, complimentary retail, commercial, and residential components. And whereas the current plan is the product of years of scrutiny and refinements with myriad values for public input, and whereas the Historic Preservation Commission issued a report to the Planning Board on February 15, 2018, with 16 recommendations, all of which have been addressed by the applicant, and whereas recently introduced concepts, for example, farmers market, atrium, antique market, and public gathering space, militate against the reintroduction of a full-scale supermarket, which remains a non-negotiable commitment to the residents who, in fact, frequented and supported Lackawanna Plaza for the past 30 years. And whereas the current plan offers a reasonable, pragmatic homage to the storied history of Lackawanna Plaza, now therefore be it resolved that the Township Council of the Township of Montclair supports the current plan. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the Secretary of the Planning Board for distribution to its members.
Yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think you,
I'm supposed to read it. Okay.
Yeah.
I apologize. Whereas, be it resolved that the Township Council of the Township of Montclair supports the current plan before the Planning Board and urges the Planning Board to consider it favorably and with dispatch, and be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be given to the Secretary of the Planning Board for distribution to its members. And I so move.
I'll second it for discussion purposes, Mr. Mayor. Dr. Baskerville, if I can introduce a friendly amendment.
Absolutely.
And forgive me, this is the lawyer counselor talking now. Given the statutory differences, if you will, in jurisdiction between planning board and town council, I would respectfully recommend that on the be it resolved second to last paragraph there, if we could just end that at the current plan before the planning board and delete the clause after that. Would you accept that as
I accept that.
Thank you.
Read that?
It would be,
I'm sorry,
be it
go ahead.
resolved that the Township Council of the Township of Montclair supports the current plan
Without before
before the Planning Board.
And then what are we changing then?
And we're going to leave out any urges to the Planning Board. We're not urging them to anything. We're just going to support this.
Supports the current plan before the planning board.
So we're just leaving out and urges.
Well, yeah, but where's the dispatch?
Where's the dispatch part of it? That's the whole.
That's my whole, that was my whole.
That's before that.
How do you say that? If you take out that last part. I can't do that.
Consider it with dispatch.
That's fine.
We're not urging anybody.
Yeah, just
We're not urging it one way or the
we're
other.
not.
to consider it with dispatch.
Yeah.
We're not telling anyone to
Right.
And who would be considered with this?
Who would, yeah, grammatically. Is that understood? The Township Council of the Township of Montclair supports the current plan before the planning board.
And urges the planning board to consider it with dispatch.
So you're taking out urges the planning board.
No, I just said
No,
that.
no, I'm telling, Bill's saying take out.
I was taking out the part
All
to
of the
consider it
rest of it.
favorably. That was my bigger concern, quite frankly. But I'm fine with saying before the planning board and urges the planning board to consider it with dispatch. That's fine too.
Okay.
Mr.
I'd be
Speller?
more comfortable if we took out the whole thing and left it at be it resolved that the Township Council of the Township of Montclair supports the current plan, and be it further resolved that a copy of this is going there. I mean, why do we have to do anything?
That's fine with me too. I was
after
trying to
that?
accommodate the mayor's
I'd just like
concern.
to
I'm
leave
fine
it
with any of the
at
planning
that
board,
and
which is
not
what,
anything.
yeah, that's fine with me, which is what several of you said. I was trying to accommodate the mayor's concern. I can go either way.
Mayor, what's your concern?
Well,
I'm sorry.
My concern is more of the, the speed.
Urgency.
Okay, okay.
That's my,
Okay.
it just goes on and on and on. It never
I
ends.
agree.
That's my.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm fine if everybody else is fine with current plan, but I obviously we've said our concern, but, if everybody's, I'm good. If everybody's comfortable with current plan, I'm good.
Well, I'd still say the word dispatch is the key word. in
Okay,
this
so
whole
let's
thing.
put it in. I can go with that.
But the public is urging us to get this done. And as maybe I spoke out of order before when I talked about it because it was on, some people brought it up. But you cannot get this cannot go on 15 years. So dispatch to me is the most important thing. Even if they make some changes, I don't mind if they make some changes, but make them with dispatch.
Okay, so
Just take out two words.
yeah,
Favorably and.
Right, take out
yeah,
favorably and.
we could do either or, but the bottom line
That's
for
just what
me is
That's just what I did, Rich. Rich, I
Yeah.
just did that favorably and.
yeah.
Councilman McMahon is.
But the reality is that for us to pass a resolution tonight that we are going to send to the planning board in and of itself pretty much states that we feel that there's some urgency. While this has been lingering far too long, and I certainly am very eager to have something that's very a wonderful plan to go ahead and move forward. I don't think that we have to put it in there because I think that leaves it open for us, like giving directives to them for the same reason that we, counselor said that that we shouldn't include that language. I think that it's implied by the fact that we're passing a resolution, which we don't always do. But this has not been your typical planning board activity. It started as redevelopment, and many of us have been working on this for far more than 3 going on 4 years, even before that. Economic Development Committee, we had an outstanding opportunity to see some plans that did have beautiful atriums that capitalized on the sunlight and all the things that Historic Preservation was kind enough to share with us. That personally, I agree that it would be wonderful to have all of those things, but I'm not willing to just continue to drag this on year after year after year when the developers clearly did not feel that it was in the best interest of what they were trying to accomplish at this time to include those. We saw nice fruit stands and all types of things, atrium, and I was very, very much in favor of having more open green space and gathering spaces and all of those things. And so, if it were up to me and this were my property, I would probably do something a little different. But today I think we have a sound plan. I think that the developers have taken a lot of time to listen. Even at the last planning board meeting, they agreed to not only maintain the trough, but now they're going to have the water. Originally they weren't sure they could keep the water. So they're very sensitive to the historic preservation piece, as am I. And I'm very, very much interested in preserving wherever it makes sense. But I think today, after all of these years and after reviewing all of the different presentations and the options, that we are at a point in time where if we drag this out much further, we may really miss an opportunity to have a wonderful food stores in a community that has been very patient. They've been saying, they call it a food desert. I heard Councilman Russo say food desert. I say there is no food desert. So let's be clear, I'm not calling it a food desert. But there is a need, and people do depend on it for convenience, for the same reason that other people look to have grocery stores near wherever they are, so they can walk or whatever, get there conveniently. So I think it's a necessity to bring fresh fruits and vegetables. I think we have them strategically in other locations, and it's wonderful. And no, I'm not by any means saying this is for the 4th Ward, although I'm very excited that this outstanding project will be located in the 4th Ward. And I do believe that a lot of the people that live in closest proximity will continue to use it. So I'd like to ask that we move forward with this resolution. I could go either way. If you guys want to leave with dispatching it, I'm fine with that. I'm also fine with taking it out because I just don't want to open up. I think that the statement in and of itself says that we feel there's an urgency to move this forward.
I'm fine. I could do that.
Taking out the word dispatch? Well, Councilor McMahon made a little change that I had also made, just takes out favorably, because I'm feeling that maybe there still could be changes made to accommodate what some residents and the HPC want to do. But I would like them to do it all with dispatch. The word favorably could come out. But the word dispatch, I want to see the word dispatch in, otherwise it's almost meaningless.
Well, just wanted to, before you, can we ask our township attorney, do you feel that just removing that language creates enough space to what Councilman Hurlock has trying to address.
When you say that language, do you mean the word to urge them to act favorably, or?
I believe one recommendation Councilman McMahon noted was just to remove urges.
Right, and so say the Township Council, the Township of Montclair supports the current plan.
Well, I think it would be a mistake to ask them to tell them how to act.
Right.
That's why I still also don't like the urges piece.
Right.
You know, once the urges is in there.
I'll say, we don't, as we did with the previous discussion, we didn't give the man a chance to finish his sentence. What did you say?
What I said was that I believe that it would be a mistake to tell the planning board how to vote on the application, favorably or unfavorably, but it wouldn't be a mistake to tell them to act expeditiously.
Okay.
Or with dispatch or something like that. I don't think,
expeditiously?
well, whatever, you know.
So with dispatch, okay, so then I would like to introduce this resolution and be it resolved that the Township Council of the Township of Montclair supports the current plan with dispatch.
Plan before the planning board.
Plan before the planning board.
Ask them to complete the.
No, that doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Right,
Yeah,
because we can urge, then we have to urge them.
Yeah, urge them to consider with dispatch. Rich, stick to
Yeah,
your.
so if you just take out the two words, just read it, take out the favorably and.
We're not telling them to. We're not telling them to
And
approve it.
urge the planning board.
We're not telling them to approve it as it is.
No, the Township Council urges, because we're one singular. So we urge and urges the planning board to consider it with dispatch.
That's it. We're saying just keep it going.
Okay, I can live with that.
Okay.
We're not gonna go.
Consensus.
Again, it's favorable, so.
Right, we got that out.
All
right, so we got it.
There's a
Got it.
consensus, all
All
right?
right,
Just-
So I so move.
So the penultimate phrase will be, be it resolved that the Township Council of the Township of Montclair supports the current plan before the planning board and urges the planning board to consider it with dispatch.
Right. Perfect, so.
And I so move.
Okay.
Second over there. Okay. Roll call.
I'd like to speak to this one. So I know that the councilwoman spoke to this issue specifically, but I also wanted to address it briefly. Also, in that while the location is the 4th ward, of course, it does abut on the 3rd ward, and is very close to me in a spot that I would frequent often as well. I think as a community we've had this discussion for a number of years in terms of the planning around this. There has been a lot of public hearings on this issue, and I know personally serving on the Economic Development Committee with my colleagues, Councilwoman Baskerville and Councilwoman Schlager, we've also looked at a number of plans. We've gone before the planning board. We've updated. We've had discussions with the developer, others. And it is not in isolation that we were making decisions and recommendations and suggestions and thought like anyone else in any other body that this has come before. We were, I think, at least one of the big concerns for me, presented with a plan that had grown, if you will, talking about a very large supermarket,
Right.
not preserving some of the features that we wanted to see, did include maybe some amenities like green space that we did want to see, but also had a very large footprint in terms of the number of apartment units and dwellings that were proposed. I know I heard personally from a lot of residents that wanted to see something smaller, did not like the size of the proposed housing numbers that were there. And then we were able to see the developer and others and the planning board, have a thoughtful debate. I thought the size was able to come down in terms of the footprint that we saw. It, yes, included a smaller supermarket, more traditional with what we see or had seen there previously. But I do think that was more in line with at least what I've heard from a lot of the residents who have reached out to me. They would absolutely rather a supermarket that is somewhat similar in size to what was there before, but one that has a much smaller footprint in terms of the number of residential units that are added to the project. And that is absolutely what we have now. Way smaller number of residential units. So for me, that was one of the key pieces. I am also happy to see that a lot of the historic elements that we wanted to see preserved as a community are in terms of a lot of the structures that we've gone through, and I know we had a point-by-point list, and we looked at those as the EDC, and more broadly, we offered suggestions to try and push that in terms of save a little more and save a little more and save a little more, while also understanding that there is a cost to that, a cost in terms of the design structure that a developer would want to use, or a supermarket at least claims that they need. to put in a top quality grocer that we all want to see. So again, this is always about trying to find a balance in that process, and I think even just my explanation here, I think we can also realize why this sometimes takes a considerable amount of time. So here we are a number of years later, still without a project, still without something that has started, because I do think it has been a good process, something that we had to have and a conversation we've had to have. But I think to the mayor's point, I think my colleagues also here expressing, at some point we do need to see action on that, because as much as we are talking structure, as many residents have also noted, we're talking about people and we're talking about impact on community. So I do want to say that at the end of this, when everybody probably walks away a little bit unhappy, that you've reached a pretty good position and pretty good spot in the deliberations and the deliberative process. So with that, I am supportive of this resolution to make sure that at this juncture now, we move forward with something and we get something that the community desperately needs. So that's why I'll be supporting the resolution. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to add, if I could, real quick, Mr. Mayor, I know it's getting late. I concur with what my colleagues have said. While I don't live in that area, my office is a half a block from this. So it absolutely, and there's a lot of people working in that area. We're going to have more people coming down as well to, with all the projects that we have going on. That is ground zero for a lot of we've got Seymour Street, we've got a lot of other things going on.
Yep.
So I think it's helpful to have exactly what you both indicated, and that's why I'm going to support this as well. Thank you.
Mayor, I just want to say one more thing again, because this is when I go up to Upper Montclair area where I used to live and where I used to be councilman. I see a King's, and a couple of blocks later I see Acme. We used to have A&P. You have two stores in a few blocks of each other. It's just not. This is not right. We can't control it. We're a free market system. I know that. We're not a socialist society. We should say one supermarket in each ward, one supermarket here. But this is a problem that we've got to address. We've been trying for 3 years. We thought we had ShopRite. We've scaled down the development to the liking of most of the residents in the area who wanted it scaled down from 350 to 150. But we can't have like a whole bunch of supermarkets available to people in one part of town and none available in the other part of town. So I like the way we changed it according to what basically Councilor McMahon said. Take out two words. We're not saying that approve it the way it is. We're saying approve it or get it done expeditiously by dispatch, the word dispatch. So moving it along is the key. And we're not blaming HPC for all the things. I'd love to change where it says recently introduced concepts. It's not HPC. It doesn't say that. That's why I'm not going to make a motion to change that. I know Kathleen said it wasn't your ideas, but the public's ideas to do all these other things are great, but they keep holding this up. And we've got to get the supermarket and get the project done as soon as we can. Thank you. That's all.
And let's don't forget that we also have an opportunity of 31 units of affordable housing, and I'm extremely excited about that part of the plan also, and so I'm very excited to move forward this. And I in no way have meant any of my comments to be disrespectful to the amount of time that the HPC has put in. I certainly value the hard work and Kathleen Battle and David Greenbaum, the whole group. The services that you guys provide, as far as I'm concerned, is invaluable. I see you at work. I hear you. I receive it. But for me, it just came down to, okay, we've been doing this for a very long time. I think everybody's, given some and taken some, and now we need to just go ahead and try to get shovels in the ground. But I do thank you very, very much for all of your hard work, and I'm not trying to in any way, dismiss it.
I just wanted to say I want to thank you all, because when I had suggested taking out favorably, and for the reasons I did, you all were very supportive of that. So thank you. I think this was a very good effort of us working together.
We understand.
Thank you. Do you?
Roll call, I think.
This is an amended
Yes.
two-word resolution. Councilor Baskerville.
Yes.
Councilor Hurlock.
Yes.
Councilor McMahon.
Yes.
Councilor Russo.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schlager.
Yes.
Councilor Spiller.
Yes.
Mayor Jackson.
Yes. Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Whereas invoices against the Township of Montclair in favor of the following persons, the amounts set opposite their respective names have been received, duly audited, and found correct. Therefore, be it resolved by the Council of the Township of Montclair, the County of Essex, that said invoices be, and they are hereby ordered paid and that checks be drawn by the Finance Department to the order of such persons for the amounts respectively and hereinafter stated on computer printout attached hereto and made a part hereof. This bill list is dated May 22nd, 2018, the amount of $1,915,839.10. And I so move.
Second. Discussion?
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes.
On page 38, there's a bill for the that's a telephone bill from Verizon for the Crescent deck for the month of April for $607.80. Is that a 1 month charge for the? Is that the telephone that's in the little house?
And probably the internet and everything
I would
else.
think it's all of the services. However, it might also be an amalgamation of multiple months. So I looked over every bill on this list. I can't recall, but I'll be happy to research that and get back to you.
Thank you.
Seems high.
Yeah, when the other there are other Verizon bills that are $128. That's okay. Yes, I'd be curious to see what that is.
Any other questions on the bill list? I have on page 41 and 42, Mr. Stafford. At the bottom of 41, the top of 42 are payments to a construction company, which I would like to. I don't mind them being the checks drawn, but I think they should be held by you for reasons I think are obvious to me. I mean, I think probably to you as well. I think you meet with them weekly.
We're meeting daily now.
Daily. I mean, so I think those should be held until you're satisfied that they are printed but given to you to hold her. I mean, you can even give them, spoon fed, whatever. But you know what I'm saying? Something.
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All in favor? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Roll call.
Counselor Baskerville?
Yes.
Counselor Hurlock?
Yes.
Counselor McMahon?
Yes.
Counselor Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Schlager?
Yes.
Counselor Spiller?
Yes.
Mayor Jackson?
Yes. Council comments?
Mayor, I just want to get this out of the way because it's May 28th that we're going to celebrate, or we're going to commemorate all the people we lost in the Memorial Day services. And I keep bringing this up because my father-in-law was a Pearl Harbor survivor. He still got his hat. My father was in the Philippines during the war. Memorial Day is really an important day for us to observe the sacrifices of all these men and women who were in these past wars, which we'd like to see ended. The day after that, though, is President Kennedy's birthday, and I want to thank my colleague, Councilor Spiller, again for giving me this great book. I got a book that cost 35 cents back in the 1960 period. It's Profiles and Courage, written by President Kennedy. 35 cents for a paperback. And another book by President Kennedy, A Nation of Immigrants, which talks about the issues we're dealing with today with immigration. So I don't want people to forget the 28th Pearl Harbor and all the folks who gave their lives at Memorial Day services. My father-in-law once spoke at one of our Memorial Day services when I was mayor. Now, the other thing was the commemoration of 50 years of Robert Kennedy's death. And I want to give all my colleagues, I have that great book he wrote, To Seek a Newer World, with me. And I just want to give all my colleagues the nice sketch that the Students for Kennedy did in 1968. It's 50 years since that election that Bobby Kennedy was killed in. That was the film that the Montclair Film Festival showed at Claridge. I saw the two first chapters of it. There's 4 parts of the film called Bobby Kennedy for President. I urge everybody to see this film. It's much more than about Bobby Kennedy. But Robert Kennedy film was produced by someone from Montclair, and we had a great showing with a lot of people at the film festival. And I did give out some of these nice sketches. The only person on the council who's got one already framed by me is my friend, Councilor Hurlock, who knows that I think he often looks like President Kennedy to me. So he has a framed copy of this, but I'd like to give my colleagues each one of these with the little article by Robert Kennedy's son. There's an article in the back by Robert Kennedy's son, Robert Kennedy Jr., about schools and teachers. He spoke to the NJEA, Sean, years ago. So I wanted you to have that to remember him, because 50 years has gone by since we lost a really great leader that inspired me to get into politics when I was only in college. And I just
Very nice.
appreciate
Thank you
you
very
letting
much.
me give that to you today.
Wow,
And
thank
Councilor
you.
Hurlock has a
Wow.
framed copy, of course.
So when should we expect our friend copy?
Well, you're not going to
As soon as you can get it framed.
Bill's got the privilege. Until I cause a problem, I don't know. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other council comments?
Yes. I'd just like to remind everyone that on June 2nd, it's that time of year again where we will be very excited to march in the Montclair African American Heritage Foundation Parade. We begin at the Glenfield Park location at 10:30, and we're going to march up Bloomfield Avenue, out Elm and Orange Road to Nishawane Park. The festival will begin at 12 noon in Nishawane Park, and there's an awesome lineup of activities and performers and children's games and things to engage in. So we'd like to encourage everyone to come out and participate. I was a little disappointed, though, because I know I looked and I think Tyrannies is having something, at the same time on the same day. And my huh? No, but I know this goes on, into the evening, and I'm hoping that moving forward, maybe we can juggle things around so that people can go to all the activities. I think that one of the reasons that we decided that we were going to try to move the parade from having the entire festival and activities in Glenfield to Nishawane is because we wanted to try to encourage people from all over township to come and enjoy and celebrate with us. And then by having, competing activities going on the same day, things like that. Now, my hope is that, in the future we can try to look at schedules and make it so that everyone can go to all the different activities and not necessarily have, a group over here at Tyrannies doing their thing and then a group down in Nishawane doing their things, because I think that that's, a way to segregate pockets of people. And I'd like to, think of ways that we can try to bring people together from all across the township. So anyway, that's on the 2nd. And I'd also like to tell you about something that I'm very passionate about, and that is the fundraiser for the Sharon Miller Performing Arts School. And this year, our mayor, Robert D. Jackson, is being honored by this group. And I'm telling you now, this will be on June 9th, 2018. I'm telling you now so that you can start saving your money. You can get a ticket for $500, or you can get a ticket for $750. Or $1,000. Now, $1,000 you get 6 tickets. But don't forget, you will be able to go and shake hands, meet the mayor, and so.
I think it's only $40.
Oh no, I got something.
Something else.
They have special tickets for me. I can get 2 tickets for $500.
No, if you look at the tickets themselves.
This is all I got. Maybe she loved me and she wanted me to get more.
Mesh is $40.
Mesh is
$40. I think hers are, I'll have to look, but I think hers are like $40 as well.
Okay, so we have some special $40
I think
tickets.
those are like for
us VIPs, okay. So the mayor says that there are $40 tickets, but anyway, no, it's a wonderful group. They have been providing outstanding dance lessons in the township for a long time. In fact, I used to take dance lessons there, and it was wonderful. They also provide scholarships for individuals that may not be able to afford the opportunity of such outstanding dance instruction. So June 9th, 2018 at Montclair State University on Normal Avenue, and that is from 6 to 7 p.m. So please come out and support the Sharon Miller Academy of Performing Arts. And our mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
A couple of things. It's been a little while since we've been down here downstairs, but we had the 6th annual on April 21st, First Ward Beautification Day. We had hundreds come out. The township supplied the bags, the gloves, the paint, And the residents supplied the sweat and the muscle, and it was a great event. We had great weather. We were at the Upper Montclair Business Association, Upper Montclair Train Station, Yanacall Park, Mountainside Park, Sunset Park, Carlisle Woods, Bonsall Preserve. So I want to thank everyone who came out and made it such a success. I also want to thank Mr. Rob Bianco, Superintendent of Public Works, who was a huge help, as always, getting the stuff picked up. Everything was picked up, Mr. Mayor, before the afternoon was over, actually. It was very well done. Also, the Montclair Film Festival. I happened to also see the Robert Kennedy movie as well, as
On
did...
Netflix now.
Yes, as did Councillor Tobin from the First Ward. So at one point we had 3 of us from the First Ward at the movies. There was the ribbon cutting over at Cornerstone in Upper Montclair off of Bellevue Avenue, which was a great success. A lot of people came out on Friday. And then, of course, many of us were at the ribbon cutting Sound on Sound over the weekend, which is another, I say, jewel in the crown of the Montclair arts. And also, I want to let everybody know that June 3rd, it's a Sunday, I believe. It's a Saturday.
Second of the Saturday.
Second. Actually, you know what? Let me check my notes here.
That's a
Sunday, June 3rd, as they say on those TV shows. If we can get camera 1 on this up here. It's the YMCA Fun Run 10K walk. I know several of us have participated over the years and look forward to that again.
Yeah.
And hope to see many of you out there. It's a good cause. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. I participate as a volunteer on my corner and wave
as
the one who's going to give you. I'm a waver. But I had the pleasure of attending the last the last show of the season for the Montclair Orchestra, and it was their inaugural season. I think a lot of us have gone to them over this past year, and they're just amazing. They're just such an asset to our town, and they did say that they'll be back for a second season, which was really great. I think in July their list of shows coming up will be out, and I think we should all support them. It's affordable.
Yes.
It's great. They have a sense of humor. It was really terrific. So I want to commend them all. And I think that's it. Thank you.
I'd just like to wish all a happy, healthy, and safe Memorial Day weekend. And should the safety aspect go awry, coincidentally, it's EMS week. We don't have a proclamation this year, but it's the Montclair Ambulance Unit is there for you, 24/7, 365. We are in the middle of our spring fund drive, so it's a good chance to open up your pocketbook and support them. They're there for you. You be there for them.
Just a couple of things. One is I thank you, Dr. Baskerville, for the mention about Sharon Miller. I'm really honored that they would do that. My kids, I think all of them went through some aspect of Sharon's program. So, in fact, Taylor was Danielle was one of the first to go through, and when she opened up. So, I have a great attachment to it, and it's a great organization. In fact, it was the dance school for the Renaissance School, for when it was the school that moved around. So Sharon and her team have really been great citizens for Montclair for a long time. So if you can support them, it would be wonderful. I just want to point out too that this past Saturday was the gala for the Montclair Art Museum, and it was really well attended, a great affair. Susan Cole was honored, Rose Calley and Kay Walkensick were honored. 3 great women and who have made remarkable contributions to our community. So I wanted to mention that as well. And I think as everybody here, the council is busy attending events all over the place, and I really want to commend my colleagues for being so engaged. Mr. Stafford, do you have anything?
Not tonight.
I guess just we should mention the ceremony Monday, or if you.
There is the ceremony on Monday.
Be indoors if it's raining, right?
Yes, although we're hoping it won't be.
Sunshine.
On Monday, the 28th at 10 o'clock at Edgemont Park. weather permitting. If there is inclement weather, and for that I suggest that you just monitor the website, the township's website, the remembrance ceremony would be in this room.
Okay. Madam Clerk, anything? Mr. Karasik, Mr. Skillenberg? All right. Is there a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wow, this is our latest one, I think.
Oh, it is.
A lot of work done.